Welcome back to part 11 of What If Naruto Was Told About the Secret of the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Please make sure to like and subscribe as it motivates me to upload more in the future, and as always, link to the fanfiction is in the description. Chapter 31, Homecoming. It took a total of 5 days for the group of 4 people and 1 pig to reach Konoha. They could have gone faster, of course, but both Jiraiya and Tsunade wanted to go slowly. Though they were for entirely different reasons, Tsunade seemed to want to just take her time and enjoy her freedom before she became tied down to a desk, while Jiraiya simply wanted to hit on Tsunade before she became tied down to her desk. Though at least one of their reasons were similar. This desire to hit on Tsunade, which was less flirting and more of him just blatantly asking her to strip or flash her tits, often endeared white-haired man to said woman's fists, much to Naruto's amusement, Shizune's chagrin and Tsunade's annoyance. Of course, none of them had expected any less from the self-proclaimed super pervert of the elemental nations. During that time Naruto had also taken to spending a lot of his time with Tsunade and Shizune, talking and getting to know the two better. He ended up getting along extremely well with both of them, much to Jiraiya's annoyance. When Jiraiya expressed his annoyance at Naruto getting along with all the women, Shizune simply stated that when the blonde spoke with them he did not blatantly stare at their chests. Tsunade had simply hit him hard enough to send him flying several dozen feet in the air. Aside from that, Naruto had also begun to spend more time with Kyuubi and had learned several interesting facts about the vixen. Flashback. As night came, Naruto found himself standing outside of the entrance to Kyuubi's home. He knocked on the door and waited for a few seconds as he heard shuffling on the other side. When it opened, he saw Kyuubi standing there and blinking at him for a moment. "Hey Q," Naruto said unsurely. After their last encounter, Naruto felt confused about what his relationship with this woman was and thus, was not really sure how to talk to her. Kyuubi seemed to notice this, however, and smirked as she opened the door wider to let him in. "Hello Naruto-kun, come on in." Naruto walked into the house, listening to Kyuubi shut the door behind him before she moved over to the bed and sat on it. He raised an eyebrow when she patted the spot next to her, but relented and sat down in the indicated spot. "So what do you want to talk about?" Kyuubi gave a shrug. "I'm not really sure, to be honest. I've never actually taken the time to have an intelligent conversation with anyone. And I know everything there is to know about you, so talking about yourself is kind of pointless." Naruto frowned for a moment. "Then do you mind if I ask you about yourself?" "About myself?" Kyuubi questioned as she looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Naruto paused for a moment before continuing, "can I ask you about your past?" "You don't have to tell me everything," he added at seeing her look, "but I know very little about your history." "Well, except from what I've heard from the history, but that doesn't really tell me about you." "No, I suppose it doesn't." Kyuubi's face scrunched up for a moment in a thoughtful expression that Naruto found surprisingly endearing. It relaxed a moment later. "Very well, ask your questions and I will tell you what I can. However, I may not answer depending on the question." "Fair enough," he started, only to stop as Kyuubi set her head in his lap. What are you doing?" "What?" asked Kyuubi as she looked up at him. "Do you have a problem with this?" "Well, I suppose not. I just did not think you were into well. This." Naruto gestured to the vixen. "You've always seemed to abhor physical contact of any kind." "I don't hate it," Kyuubi said before as she struggled to find a comfortable position. "It's just that I've never found anyone worthy of having physical contact with." "And I am?" asked Naruto with an eyebrow raised in surprise. "You're coming closer than anyone else has," Kyuubi replied as she finally got into a good position and snuggled deeper into the blonde's lap, eliciting a small squawk of embarrassment from Naruto. "Ah, does Naruto-kun like that?" she teased as she moved her head, causing the blonde to jump. What the hell are you doing, Kyuubi?" Naruto shouted as he jumped out from under the red head. Kyuubi frowned as she set herself on her elbow and looked at the blonde, who was now off of the bed and staring at her like she was some kind of diseased animal. "What? Did that bother you? I thought you would have liked being so close to such a beautiful woman." She frowned as she wondered if she had done something wrong. According to those Ika books Naruto had read, this kind of thing was how members of the opposite sex acted around each other. And she had seen more than enough perverted men in her lifetime to know that they all loved girls who acted like this. "It has nothing to do with me liking it," Naruto exclaimed. "I still don't really know you. You can't expect us to be that close, physically without even knowing each other. Blinking a bit, Kyuubi tilted her head in confusion. Then how do we act around each other? Naruto gave her an exasperated look. You've lived for at least 2,000 years and you don't know how to act around people. I thought you would have known what to do considering you've always hid amongst humans. Kyuubi bristled a bit when Naruto said she hid, but knew he was not saying she was being a coward and let it slide. Naruto-kun, the humans I was around were nothing more than slaves. Most of the time I had their mind completely warped and they were able to do nothing more than follow my orders. The few humans who tried to talk to me when I did not want to were usually either charmed and became mindless drones, or I got rid of them when they became persistent. Naruto felt a slight amount of disgust when he heard what Kyuubi did to people but let it slide since they were trying to. He paused. What were they trying to do? Start a friendship? Become comrades? Learn to accept each other? Or were they just trying to tolerate the other? He shook his head and dispelled the thoughts for now since they were not relevant to the situation. Since we're just starting out, it would be best if physical contact was kept to a minimum. Once we get to know each other more and if we end up becoming more comfortable with each other, then we can think about physical contact. He tried to dispel the thought on how odd it was that he was teaching the Kyuubi no Kitsune about human relations and interaction. Said woman frowned for a moment before relenting. Very well, we'll do this your way. Not like she knew any other way to interact with others, at least none that would end up with her in a favorable position. She patted the spot next to her again and watched as Naruto hesitantly sat back down. She looked at him for a moment before speaking again. So what would you like to know? Naruto scratched his chin in thought. Well, how about we start from the beginning? Like how were you born? Kyuubi looked at him for a few seconds and for a moment Naruto thought she was not going to answer. However, a second later she began to speak. I suppose I could tell you that. To be honest, I have no real clue on just how I came into being. The first thing I remember when I first woke up, I guess you could say, was being in the middle of a forest surrounded by trees and all kinds of wildlife. I remember finding a small pond and looking into the reflected surface to see myself looking at a small fox no larger than a kit, with 9 tails swishing behind me. However, I knew right from the beginning that I was not just an ordinary fox, and I didn't need the fact that I had 9 tails to tell me otherwise. I had knowledge in my head, knowledge of the human language, knowledge of the different creatures of the world and all the general things that most humans learn in school. Aside from that, all the other animals of the forest avoided me like the plague. They instinctively knew my power and knew I was dangerous. From the very beginning I knew what I was. I was a chakra beast, a being made of compressed chakra that had somehow gained a form of intelligence. I remember traveling the forests for several years after that. Eventually I had grown into the size of a large horse. Around that time I was unsure what to do with my life. I knew neither where I came from nor where I was going. Naruto frowned as he watched Kyuubi's shoulders slump for a moment and saw an odd reflective look in her eyes. Deciding that maybe a little contact was okay between them, he put an arm around her shoulder. That must have been lonely. Kyuubi looked up at Naruto with a startled expression, but it soon gave way to a smile that looked decidedly out of place on her, as if she did not really know how to give an honest smile. I suppose it was. But then, I was always alone. Even when I took on a human guise I was alone, the only being of my kind. It was something I got used to over time. What about the other Biju? Asked Naruto. Kyuubi scoffed. Please do not lump me in with those brutes, Naruto-kun. I had not known about them for several hundred years, and the only reason I found out was because I met one and it tried to eat me. The other Biju were nothing more than mindless beasts, causing untold destruction and pointless death. They are all nothing more than extraordinarily simple-minded creatures with a large amount of power. I think I remember telling you this, Naruto-kun. What about you? You've never caused pointless death and destruction. There was a hint of irony in the blonde's voice. Not of my own making, Kyuubi shot back. I have never liked doing pointless things, or things that were beneath me. Killing humans as a pastime was simply beneath me, because humans in general were beneath my notice. Instead of killing them, I decided to find a use for them. Humans are such short-lived creatures, and while some are intelligent, most are notoriously weak-willed and stupid. I found enjoyment in getting them to serve me. As I already told you, I would often disguise myself as the daughter of a daimyo or some other rich noble. I would use simple illusions and charms that I had created to seduce men and have them wait on me hand and foot. I found it much more appealing than running around blasting everything into oblivion. Now I believe I've talked about myself enough. If you want to find out more, you'll have to impress me enough to tell you. Flashback end. It was actually really interesting learning more about the demon inside of him. Naruto was positive that no one else knew these things about Kyuubi, and to be honest, it made him secretly pleased. Although she had yet to tell him anything other than what she remembered of her birth. She had apparently been serious when she had told him he was going to have to find some way to impress her, something he, as of yet, had no clue how to do. As Naruto and the others arrived into Konoha, it was to see the interesting sight of all the shocked faces that the villagers were sporting upon seeing. None other than Tsunade walking within the village walls again. As they all walked through to the Hokage tower, Naruto decided to listen into the smattering of whispers that came from the local populace. I can't believe it. Tsunade-sama is back. Now we have both Jiraiya-sama and Tsunade-sama. It is great tidings for the future to see our two strongest ninja in the village. Hey, isn't that the Uzumaki brat? What is he doing with such distinct shinobi? Maybe Tsunade-sama managed to use her grandfather's Mokuten and is finally reining the brat in. Naruto snorted as he listened to the last few bits of conversation before they were away from the major population. Can you believe this shit, Q-chan? Within the mindscape, Kyuubi frowned as she sat on her bed, her tail swaying in a bit of agitation. Of course I can. Humans always hate and fear things that are beyond their comprehension. It takes a lot of effort to get a human to change their opinion about something, especially on a subject they have believed for so long, like them thinking you are me in human flesh. Honestly, the stupidity of humankind is one of those things that never ceases to amaze me. This is one of the reasons I've always held contempt for humans. Naruto frowned. Well, they weren't all bad. He had heard a few people who had suggested that Naruto had taken part in returning Tsunade to the village, but they were in the extreme minority, meaning only 1 out of every 5 people or so. At least the ninja of the village were paying him respect. He had seen many of the ninja who had passed him nodding their heads at him in a sign of respect. Obviously they had seen more of his actions during the Chunin exams and invasion afterwards. That's still too low after everything you've done. You defeated Sabaku no Gaara and the Shukaku. You were the sole reason this village is still standing and not several hundred feet under sand. Naruto sighed. Can't win 'em all so soon, I guess. Whatever, I prefer challenges anyways. Within the seal, Kyuubi stopped her mouth in mid-rant as Naruto's words registered in her ears. After a few moments' pause, she shook her head. I really have found a 1 in a million container, and you haven't, Naruto-kun. You're so different from everyone else. She paused for a moment before sighing. You truly deserve far more than these lowly humans could ever give you. Naruto blushed a bit. Wow, laying it on a little thick, aren't you? Kyuubi growled. Shut up, I was trying to be nice. Sorry, you know I was just teasing. Naruto let out a mental chuckle that rung across the mindscape. These humans don't give me the respect and kindness I deserve, huh? Maybe that's why I have you. Kyuubi felt her face getting oddly hot and cursed at the known yet at the same time unknown to her feeling, charmer. Naruto chuckled again and cut the mental conversation as he and the others entered a meeting room within the Hokage tower. Much to the disgruntlement of Tsunade, it was to find Homura and Koharu waiting for them. Welcome home, Tsunade-sama, Homura greeted with a smile. It is good to see you back. Tsunade resisted the urge to roll her eyes as she plastered a diplomatic smile on her face. It is good to be back, for the most part. There are still a few painful memories when I look at this place, but I guess those will pass with time. The elders who had frowned at the start of her little speech soon turned back to smiles. That is good to hear, though I do regret that this place still holds pain for you, Tsunade-sama. Koharu said, now to get started, we are planning on having your announcement and coronation for the position of Hokage later tomorrow. That way you will have time to re-familiarize yourself with the village since much has changed in the time you have been gone. Naruto stopped the sigh that threatened to escape him as the elders got on with their boring speech about who knows what. He briefly wondered why he was still here. It was not like they needed him or anything. His mission was done, and really he just wanted to sleep. Hey Ba-chan, you don't need me for this part, do you? asked Naruto, getting the attention of everyone in the room. The reactions he received from the elders were somewhat amusing. Homura's jaw had unhinged itself for all of 2 seconds before he glared at the blonde-haired boy. Koharu was similar her reaction, only it was much more pronounced as the sagging skin of her jaw quivered. Tsunade noticing the reactions of the 2 elders sighed, "Go on brat, get some rest." "Thanks Ba-chan, I'll see you in Arrow Senin later. After I get in a good sleep on my crappy mattress." Naruto took off, leaving the room behind. As Naruto began walking out of the Hokage tower he came upon an interesting scene. Konohamaru, get out of there now. 2 Chunin, by the looks of their flak jackets, were pounding on the door to the Hokage's office. Standing beside them were Moegi and Udon, who were looking rather worried. The 2 Chunin who were continuing to pound on the door and demanding Konohamaru to come out were answered by several pepper spray pellets hitting them on the head and caused their eyes to tear. "What's the problem here?" Moegi and Udon both turned to see Naruto. "Boss." Moegi ran up to Naruto as he walked over to them. "Boss. Konohamaru-kun has locked himself inside of the office. He refuses to come out." "Oh, does he?" asked Naruto as he walked up to the door, and the 2 Chunin who were still hacking and wheezing, "You two may want to stand back." Naruto did not wait for an answer as he ran up and heel-kicked the door, smashing it in and sending it flying to the far side of the wall. Several blunt kunai and smoke pellets were launched at the blonde, but Naruto released a blast of wind and sent them also flying to the far wall. Naruto strode into the room and quickly picked up Konohamaru by his scarf, bringing him out kicking and screaming. "Hey! Let me go! Let me go! I don't wanna leave!" "Shut up Yagaki!" Naruto conked him on the head before disappearing within a shunshin. The pair reappeared on top of the Hokage monument and Naruto set Konohamaru down before sitting down himself. The blonde looked amused as Konohamaru pouted and looked away from him. "You know, if you're gonna act like some spoiled gaki, then this is gonna be a lot harder." When Konohamaru remained silent, Naruto sighed. "So what's your problem, kid?" "Nothing," Konohamaru mumbled out. "Don't give me that. Either you tell me what's wrong or I'll be sure to hang you on the flag post outside the Hokage's tower in nothing but your underwear." Konohamaru paled at the thought of that, and he knew from experience that when Naruto said he would do something, that it was not just some idle threat. Sighing, Konohamaru looked out over the village and tears began to leak from his eyes. "My Oji-san died, boss. He died to protect this village. But everyone's already moving on with their lives. It's like my Oji-san didn't even exist. They're just forgetting about him. Moving on, we even have a new Hokage. But I don't want to move on. I don't want to forget about my Oji-san, boss. I can't." Naruto ran a hand through his hair at the kid's near hysterical voice. A part of him could not help but wonder if he was that stupid and naive as a child. "Do you want me to answer that?" came the sly voice of the vixen in his mind. "No thanks, I can do without having my awesome childhood image of myself destroyed." Naruto placed a hand on the younger kid's shoulders. "Listen Ko, no one has forgotten Hokage Oji-san. You're forgetting that he ruled this place for many years. In fact, he has the longest reign in the entire history of Konoha. He has done so many things for this village that it will be impossible for others to simply forget him. When someone touches as many lives as he did, people don't just forget about it when that person is no longer around. Even with him gone, his memory will always remain in the hearts of those who live here." "Really?" Konohamaru sniffled a little bit. Naruto smiled at the kid, of course. His smile turned a little wistful. "And you know what? I think Oji-san was happy with the way he died." Naruto looked at the little boy who had shock on his features. Oji-san was getting up there in his years. "I never wanted to admit it to myself since I always saw him as this eternal pillar of strength. But you know, there were times when I was in his office and I caught sight of just how truly tired he looked. We normally don't see it, but he was getting weary. He held the title of Hokage for somewhere upwards of 50 years and he kept this place strong through the Second and Third Shinobi War, while fighting in another one. I get the feeling he was getting tired of it and wanted to pass on the torch of Hokage to someone else. But how could that have anything to do with him liking the way he died?" Konohamaru shouted as he stood up. "My Oji-san was murdered. He died protecting the village Ko," Naruto said in a rare and quiet voice. "He died protecting the people of this village and battling against an enemy ninja. He died like a Hokage, nobly sacrificing his life to protect this place even though he was getting on in his years. Can you think of a better way to go? Konohamaru looked at Naruto for several minutes before he sighed and slumped down next to the blonde. Well, when put it like that, that's pretty deep, boss. Naruto grinned as he threw an arm around Konohamaru's shoulder. Ko, you'll find that when you get to be as awesome as I am, deep shit like this just rolls off the tongue. Now, are you gonna mope and bitch like Sasuke Tem anymore? I wasn't that bad, was I, boss? Naruto laughed at Konohamaru's petrified voice. Ko, you were so bad that if you hadn't been hiding in the Hokage's office while you decided to brood, the Tem's fangirls would have probably thought you were him. Now, Naruto stood up and gave Konohamaru a pat on the shoulder and sent the kid on his way. Naruto was just about to leave when a new voice spoke up. You know, that was quite the speech you gave the young boy, very moving if I do say so myself. Turning around, Naruto found himself staring at an old man who looked to be around Sarutobi's age. He was wearing a white robe with bandages wrapped around his left eye and right arm. He walked with a cane held in the other arm. He had several scars on his face which had a crop of messy brown hair. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man as he analyzed him. I didn't even sense his approach until he was right on top of me. That kind of skill is above most jonin nowadays. It was the one thing he had always been good at, it was stealth and detection. That this man could get so close to him and not be found until he revealed himself meant he was good. However, Naruto did not sense any hostile intent and so he gave the man a grin. Well, thanks, but it was nothing really. I just happen to be totally cool and amazing at this kind of thing. Indeed, the man seemed amused, but Naruto could not really tell. The blonde watched as the bandaged man walked up to him and looked out at the village. Tell me, boy, did you mean those words back there? Naruto raised an eyebrow. You know, if you're going to talk to me, the least you could do is give me your name. Ah, my apologies, Uzumaki-san. My name is Danzo. The now named man looked towards him. Well, it seems you already know my name. Naruto looked at him and decided that since he had no hostile intent, he could sit back down. Since you were up here spying on me, I take it you wanted to talk. You are quite perceptive. Danzo looked at the boy. It seems your academy records are greatly biased towards you. No, those were actually pretty accurate. I was an idiot back then. Naruto grinned. Amazing what 6 months of actual training can do. If Danzo was surprised by that information, though he did not show it, I was wondering if you would be interested in helping me to protect this beautiful village. I have a need of strong individuals who are willing to do what is necessary to get the things that need to be done. Naruto stared long and hard at the man before speaking. From the sounds of your speech, it sounds like you're offering me a part in a branch of a military. You're military. And if you're asking me when I'm alone like this, then that means you do not have the Hokage's approval. I've read about you in some of the history books I've read. He took a moment to shudder. Even if it was his clones doing it, the memories were still torture. You are Shimura Danzo, former commander of Root, a branch that was separate from the standard military and did not answer to the Hokage, though Root was supposed to be disbanded a long time ago. Danzo's one eye narrowed just a bit. I see you're able to come up with a few sound theories when only given a few facts. Naruto shrugged. It's a skill. I'll tell you right now that I have no interest in joining your forces. However, I won't tell the Hokage about them either, since I can tell that you are at least sincere in your desire to protect Konoha. I would, however, suggest being more careful with whom you try to recruit next time. With those parting words, Naruto left within a shunshin. Uzumaki Naruto, you are a most interesting character. I will look forward to seeing what you do in the future. Naruto sighed as he finally got into his room. He would not admit it to anyone who asked, but he was tired. The mission to find Tsunade had been like all the other missions he had been on, more trouble than it was really worth. Not particularly caring enough to actually get undressed, the blonde shinobi simply flopped down on his bed where he decided to sleep for at least 16 hours and spend time with Kyuubi in his mindscape. 16-something hours later, Naruto groaned as he heard a knock on his door, though it was more like a loud banging than anything. Grunting, Naruto got up and made his way out of his room and over to the door. When he opened it, it was to find one Higurashi Tenten staring him down with an intense glare. Hey Ten-chan, can I help you? Tenten's mouth became a thin line. You left without saying goodbye. Naruto took a small step back as Tenten took one forward. Oh great, not again. What is it with this girl and getting angry at me? Well Tenten did not seem interested in listening to what he had to say as she stomped into the room and began making him back up. Not only did you leave but you left on a mission to find Tsunade-sama and you didn't even tell me. Oh. Naruto knew he was in deep shit now. Well, just to be square, I didn't even know I was going to be looking for her until like, 2 days into the mission. That's not the point. Tenten poked him in the chest, making him take a step back. Unfortunately, his couch was right behind him, so when he tried to take a step back he ended up falling backwards onto the couch. Now that it seemed to stop the bun-haired girl in her tirade as she moved around the couch to glare at him upside down, which was actually kind of comical. Give me one good reason I shouldn't turn you into a pincushion. Because now you get to see your idol every day. Naruto spoke in a questioning tone. Tenten looked at him for several long minutes before sighing. Honestly, Naruto-kun, what am I going to do with you? Realizing the danger had passed for the most part, Naruto sat upright on his couch. I'm not sure what you're implying, Ten-chan. No, of course not. Tenten chuckled a bit before sitting on the couch. Before he knew what was happening, the bun-haired girl was right next to him with stars in her eyes. So what's Tsunade-sama like? I bet it was so incredible being with such a powerful and strong kunoichi. Did you see her do anything amazing? Do you think you can introduce us? Naruto leaned slightly back as Tenten continued to pound him with questions that he had no answer to, mainly because she was asking them so quickly he could barely keep up. Ten-chan, you need to slow down. Naruto tried to get her to stop talking. You're talking too fast. Tenten realized what she was doing and blushed. Sorry Naruto-kun, I'm just so excited that Tsunade-sama is here. She won't be excited once she learns that Ba-chan is nothing but an old drunk. Naruto decided to keep that thought to himself so as not to ruin the poor girl's preconceived notions of her hero. Well, how about later I introduce you to her? The moment Naruto said that, he instantly regretted it as Tenten got hearts in her eyes. You would do that for me? Really? Thank you. Tenten latched onto Naruto's neck and began to squeeze the blonde-haired boy, who soon enough began turning blue. Oh, thank you so much, Naruto-kun. You have no idea how much this means to me. Naruto-kun. Tenten looked at her blonde-haired companion to see him passed out with a blue face and swirls in his eyes. Naruto-kun. Tsunade sighed as she sat at her desk and rifled through some papers. There was so much for her to do. She had to deal with the estimated casualty ratings, damage reports, refamiliarizing herself with the shinobi of the village and set the village budget, as well as relegate missions for the ninja. That's not even going into all the meetings she had to go to since they still needed to deal with the Suna situation. As she was leafing through the piles of paperwork, her eyes landed on the recommendation sheet for the Chunin exams. Picking it up, her eyes scanned it and she felt herself smirk. She signaled for her Anbu, making a man wearing a bear mask appear before her. Get me Uzumaki Naruto. Man, I can't believe you got to see a battle with all 3 of the Sannin. Tenten whined. I swear Naruto-kun, you're so lucky. Naruto chuckled a bit. Believe me, there is nothing lucky about the shit I get into. After Naruto had woken up from the death grip Tenten had placed on him, the pair had gone out to get some ramen. Having paced himself this time, Naruto was only on his 14th bowl while Tenten was finishing up her first. As they ate, he had told her all about his mission to bring Tsunade back. Well, not everything. He neglected to tell her key parts, like him getting stabbed twice and some other things that he felt would destroy the girl's image of Tsunade. I don't know how you can say that. I mean, you got to meet the Sannin, you're being trained by a Sannin and you always seem to go on so many adventures, Tenten concluded. Yeah, and I usually end up getting my ass kicked by people who are ridiculously stronger than me. Naruto shook his head. It's nowhere near the adventure you think it is. Tenten pouted at that and was about to say something when a masked Anbu appeared. Within a shunshin right next to them. Uzumaki-san, Tsunade-sama would like to see you. Naruto looked at the bear-masked Anbu and sighed. Alright, tell her I'll be there shortly. The Anbu nodded and disappeared. Naruto turned to Tenten. Looks like I'm gonna have to cut this short. I'll see you later, okay Ten-chan. Tenten gave soft, depressed sigh. She had been hoping to spend a little more time with Naruto. Yeah, I'll see you later. Naruto placed a hand over hers and gave it a soft squeeze before disappearing in a shunshin. You called Ba-chan. Tsunade turned her head and gave Naruto a disgruntled look as she saw him crouched on the windowsill. Gaki, haven't you ever heard of a door? Naruto snorted as he stepped into the office. Doors are for losers, Ba-chan. He sat down in front of Tsunade's desk and gave her a grin. So what did you need to see me for? Tsunade looked at him and grinned as she tossed him a scroll. I wanted to see you to congratulate you on your promotion, Gaki. Naruto unsealed the contents of his scroll and grinned as he saw the green Chunin flak jacket. Awesome. I knew they would have to promote me after I kicked ass in the Chunin exams. Naruto resealed the jacket since he did not really feel like wearing something so bulky. So does that mean I'm going to be getting better missions than those D-rank terrors? Tsunade smirked. Of course, with the village and the situation it's in, we need all the help we can get. As a Chunin you'll be instructed to go on higher ranked missions with other Chunins and Jonins. You will also be called upon to lead genin on some missions since most of their Jonin senseis are being assigned to tougher missions. Naruto nodded before frowning. What about Team 7? He was not really sure whether he really liked being on that team or not. Kakashi was nice enough, and occasionally the other two were, but they never really had any serious team dynamics. You'll still go on occasional missions with them too. But because you're a Chunin you will only be with them when I assign a higher ranked mission. Naruto nodded at the woman's answer. Makes sense. Is that all you need me for? Tsunade nodded. Yep, that's all, Gaki. Come back in a day or two and I'll have a mission for you. Naruto stood and jumped back onto the windowsill. I'll see you later, Ba-chan. He jumped out just as she threw a paperweight at his head, laughing as he landed on a roof below. Damn Gaki, Tsunade grumbled under breath. Naruto soon found himself in the forest of death, having decided that since he had gotten his 16-hour sleep it would be a good idea to start training. As he walked into his usual clearing, the blonde's senses went on high alert, forcing him to jump out of the way as several snakes came at him. Kitsune Bai. Naruto opened his mouth as he channeled his Yuki into a single point there. The swirling purple energy could be seen as a condensed ball in his mouth, right before it burst into a light blue flame and shot out, destroying the snakes before they could do anything else. While he had been launching his attack, the blonde had followed the snake's trail to see where they had been. He created his Yuki whip and sent the purple string of energy up into the tree branches where the leaves were thickest. This had the inherent effect of making Anko, who had been watching him almost as soon as he entered the forest, jump out and land on the ground some distance away. Said woman launched several kunai almost as soon as she hit the ground, began going through a set of hand seals and calling out a jutsu, kunai kage bunshin no jutsu. The kunai multiplied into several dozen, all of them heading towards Naruto. However, the blonde was not deterred in the least as he unsealed his bow staff and began spinning it in an ever-increasingly complex pattern. As he continued he charged wind chakra through the staff and unleashed a blast of wind with every movement he made. Unlike a sword, where this would have made a cutting motion due to a blade's sharp edge, the staff created gusts of wind that knocked the kunai off course. When all of the kunai had been cleared, Naruto resealed his staff and launched a kunai of his own from the gauntlet on his wrist. At the same time he made several one-handed seals that caused the kunai he sent to multiply into 10. Naruto smirked when he noticed the slight widening of Anko's eyes, signifying her surprise at his ability to do a technique without saying the name. It didn't last long however, as two kunai slid into the snake mistress's hand and she began deflecting and dodging the projectiles. While she was doing that, Naruto was running in close and by the time she had finished dodging had his two hands linked together by their thumbs and thrust them out. Fuden, Kamikaze Seiken. The air shimmered as the wind in the shape of Naruto's fist hit Anko and sent her flying into a tree, where the force of her impact created a large crater. Naruto was not surprised when Anko turned into mud. Nor was he surprised when several snakes shot out from some bushes a dozen feet away and latched onto him. A second later they sunk their fangs into him and Naruto exploded. You know, that was pretty close. Anko's eyes widened as she heard Naruto's voice behind and jumped away just in time to dodge his next strike. Using one hand as a springboard she flipped herself up and spun in midair, tossing a kunai at the blonde who merely caught in between his fingers. Landing back on the ground she eyed the blonde a moment before favoring him with a smirk. You know, you've gotten pretty good. 6 months ago had this fought like this it would have been over almost before it began. What can I say? Naruto grinned as he rolled the kunai in his hands between his fingers. I had an amazing teacher, a crazy, sadistic, psychotic bitch, but an amazing one. He sent the kunai flying back at Anko, who caught it in her hand and returned it to him at an increased speed. You say such kind things about me, Gaki. Naruto grinned as he sent a kunai from his launcher to intercept Anko's. You know you love it. Anko stuck her tongue out before thrusting out her hands, Sunagakure. Several more snakes were launched out. However, Naruto had come to expect that and had unsealed his katana and ran straight at the snakes. He sliced right through them before continuing on to Anko, who grinned and let 2 kunai fall into her hands as she met his charge head-on. She blocked the first strike with her left kunai, and then sent out her right hand in a slash that would slit Naruto's throat. However, the blonde was quick enough to disengage his blade with Anko's and intercepted the attack. Using his strength, Naruto pushed her back and then spun around, swinging his blade in a horizontal slash at waist height. Rather than block the slash, which she knew would send her off balance due to the blonde's increased strength, jumped back and let the blade pass through the spot she had been. The battle paused and the two eyed each other wearily, before on some unspoken signal they charged again. Naruto came in with an overhand swing that Anko blocked with one kunai, grunting as she felt her knees buckle behind his strength, but she stayed strong as she lashed out at him with her other kunai. Naruto jumped over her attack, flipping himself around in midair and aimed a slash at Anko's head. The perplet seemed to have plans other than getting her cranium split down the center, however, as she ducked under the slash and rolled forward. She came up on her feet and spun around just in time to block the attack that came at her, but was forced to channel chakra to her feet to keep from sliding back. They clashed again, Anko's 2 kunai meeting Naruto's katana as they attempted to push each other back. However, Anko seemed to have planned this as she suddenly took away her blades, letting Naruto fall off balance as she lashed out with a kick, taking his legs out from under him. Naruto hit the ground with a oomph, landing on his back before he was forced to roll out of the way when Anko tried to stomp a mud hole in his stomach. He pushed himself into a series of flips as he tried to gain some distance. As soon as he landed on his feet, he was forced to dodge several kunai as Anko began charging him, launching them as she closed the distance. Naruto resealed his katana as he inhaled a deep breath, Fuden, Daitapa. He blew out a huge gust of wind, forcing Anko to stop and ground herself with chakra, lest she get blown away. When the attack ended, it was for Anko to see Naruto already next to her, and it was only instincts that saved her from getting hit. As Naruto's fist came in, Anko swerved her body just ever so slightly to the side, letting it pass by as she used her left hand to swat it away. This had the benefit of knocking Naruto off balance and letting her take a shot at his throat. Thankfully, Naruto was able to see the attack coming and was saved by creating a cage bunshin without hand seals before kawiramiing with it. Hey, you really have gotten better, Gaki. That last attack would have gotten anyone below Nai-chan's level. Anko smirked when she saw a grinning Naruto come out of a bush to her right. As I said, I had a good teacher. Naruto walked up to her. So any reason you attacked me, other than to greet your favorite Gaki? I heard you went on a mission with a certain white-haired pervert to find Tsunade-sama. Naruto chuckled a bit, knowing she was looking for details. I did, it was pretty interesting to say the least. If you want, I'll tell you more about it over some dango and sake. Just let me make some cage bunshin to do some training. Anko grinned. Alright, Gaki, and since we're going to have sake, maybe we can see how well you can hold your liquor. Naruto grinned as he downed another shot of sake. He looked over at his drinking partner in amusement. Had enough, Anko? Anko tried to glare at him, but considering she was seeing quadruplets, she was not quite sure which one to glare at. Yet even drunk she could see that infernal smirk on his face. After all, it was magnified by 4. Oh, how come you're not wasted? You should be a lightweight. Thanks to Kyuubi and his own demonic properties, Naruto was not even sure he could get drunk. Not that he was going to tell her that. She might accuse him of cheating. This just goes to show you how incredible I am. I'm talented at anything I set my mind to, and that includes drinking you under the table. Oh yeah, Anko growled out before downing another shot. Naruto merely smirked as he followed suit. 20 minutes and Kami only knows how many shots later. Naruto was laughing his ass off while Anko was passed out on the table, snoring lightly while a small amount of drool escaped her mouth. Naruto stood up and picked up Anko, being mindful not to get her drool on his shirt. Walking over to the bar, he got the attention of the owner who worked there, a man named Kenshin, who after having Naruto come in with Anko regularly for the past few months no longer held any animosity towards the blonde. He looked at the passed-out woman in Naruto's arms and smirked, "Something I can help you with?" Naruto grinned, "Yeah, put our knight on her tab." He gestured to the snoring Anko. Kenshin chuckled, "You know she's gonna kill you, right?" "Meh, I can deal with it," Naruto shrugged. "Well, alright, if you're sure," Kenshin said before handing him Anko's bill. Naruto held it between his fingers and grinned as he disappeared within a shunshin. "Omake, payback's a bitch. Ooh, my fucking head." Anko woke up with a groan as she held onto her head, trying to get the damn thing to stop pounding. Blearily she opened her eyes to find that she was in her apartment. What the hell? She didn't remember coming here. The last thing she remembered was that damn Gaki. Who the hell drinks like that their first time? Anko muttered as she got out of bed. Ignoring the sense of vertigo she felt for a moment, the purple-haired woman stumbled her way out of her room and into her kitchen. She was about to search the pantries for her hangover cure when she caught sight of it lying on the table. Frowning since she did not remember putting it there, Anko picked up, looking at it before she shrugged and went over to get a glass of water to take the pills. As she finished taking the pills, Anko set the glass of water down on the table, the effects of the hangover cure already working. She was just about to up and leave when she noticed the sheet of paper that had been lying under the pills. She picked it up and felt her eyes widen as she read it. Crumpling the piece of paper, she growled, "Naruto ooh." Somewhere across Konoha, Naruto, who had been about to start his day, smirked as he heard the shout ring across Konoha. "That will teach her to mess with me, corrupt my mind with a sense of perverseness and not get away with it, huh? I think not." He had planned for this day ever since Anko had corrupted his mind with her perverted books. Grinning, he made his way to a training ground further away from the forest of death, knowing he would have to avoid that place today. Maybe I should go train with Ten-chan and her team. Chapter 32, Suna Siblings. It was early in the morning and Naruto was grinning to himself as he threw aside the curtain to his favorite ramen stand. Taking a seat at his stool, his grin widened as the heavenly aroma of ramen hit his nose. "Oi, Tyuki Oja-san. I'm ready to get my fill and make up for lost time." Both Tyuki and Ayame came out from the back and one grinned while the other smiled. "Well, look who came back from the dead. You know, we haven't seen you for a while. We were wondering where our favorite customer went." "Yeah, Ero Senin had me tag along while he went to go bring back Tsunade-ba-chan, remember?" The blonde clapped his hands together. "Now I believe I'll start off with 4 bowls of miso, 2 bowls of beef, 1 bowl of shrimp and, oh what the hell, 2 bowls of vegetable. Comin' right up." Tyuki grinned as he went to make the ramen. Meanwhile, Ayame leaned over the counter and propped her face on the butt of her hands, giving the boy who she had known since he was 6 a grin. "So anything new happening, Naruto-kun?" Naruto clicked his tongue for a moment in thought. "Not too much. Oh. I did get promoted to Chunin yesterday." "Chunin, huh?" Ayame turned her head to look at her dad. "You hear that too, San? Looks like our little Naruto just got promoted to Chunin. I guess that means the first one will be on the house then." Tyuki shouted back as he came in with a bowl of steaming ramen. "Here ya go, kid." "Oh hell yeah." Naruto grabbed onto a pair of chopsticks and with a shout of, "Itadakimasu," dug in. "So what do you think you're going to be doing now that you're a Chunin?" Naruto looked up at Ayame as he finished devouring his first bowl of noodles, causing the ramen waitress to giggle as she saw a few noodles hanging out of his mouth. He slurped them up before giving her a grin. "Well, I won't really be a part of Team 7 anymore. Tsunade-ba-chan told me that she's going to have me gain more experience by moving around teams. Sometimes I'll be with Jonin and other Chunin and other times she's going to have me leading squads of genin. Does it bother you that you won't be with that Sakura girl anymore?" Truth be told, Ayame never liked Sakura because of the way she treated Naruto. "Not really." Naruto shrugged. "I got over her a long time ago, well, a few months ago. In any case, there are girls a lot better than Sakura out there." You mean like that blonde Kumo Kunoichi who came here a few times? Ayame grinned a bit, amused to see Naruto blush. She came here quite often, you know, asking questions about what kind of person you were and what kinds of ramen you liked. Yeah, I kind of figured you two were the ones who gave her that information. They were really the only ones who knew anything solid about him besides Sarutobi, who was dead, and maybe Anko and Tenten. Then there's also that girl with the buns, Tenten, I think her name was, right? You hang out around here with her quite a bit. That's true. But I don't think I'm in a relationship with either of them. Naruto got his blush under control quicker than normal. Though I won't deny both of them are really cool to hang with. Not to mention both are hot, he thought to himself, not sure whether saying that out loud in front of a girl was a good idea. After all, so far most of the females he knew exploded over the simplest things. You just don't know when to keep your mouth shut is all. Kyuubi's voice came up after hearing his thoughts. Hey, I'll have you know I've gotten a lot better at that. Oh really? Kyuubi grinned as she combed her tails. Of course, I haven't said anything to upset anyone in the past week. What about Anko? Naruto shivered as he remembered how angry she was with his prank. That was different, she deserved it. And I knew what I was doing. Yeah, until her snakes tried to turn your balls blue. Naruto couldn't keep the scowl off his face. He could feel Kyuubi's smug grin as he cut the connection. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Naruto looked up to see Ayame looking at him with some concern. He gave her a reassuring grin. Of course I am Ayame-ne-chan. Now time to tackle that ramen. Ayame giggled a bit as Naruto began destroying the next poor bowl of ramen that was set in front of him. Good morning, Ba-chan. Naruto ducked under the customary paperweight that was thrown at his head as he hopped off the windowsill. Disrespectful Gaki, Tsunade muttered with narrowed eyes. What do you want? Can't you see I'm busy? Naruto grinned. Yeah, because sitting here drinking sake is really hard work, right? Tsunade gawked at him. How did you? She flushed as she saw him tap his nose and remembered he could likely smell the sake on her from a mile away. Right, well, what are you here for? Naruto opened his mouth to speak before he saw something that made him frown. Ba-chan, did you know all the piles of your paperwork are in the wrong stacks? Huh? Tsunade stared at him blankly. What the hell are you talking about, brat? Sighing, Naruto created a cage bunshin that began rearranging the stacks of paperwork on her desk. You've mixed up the stacks for mission scrolls and all the paperwork is in the wrong order. The first one on the left is where all papers on internal issues within Konoha go, the next one is for external issues like alliances, and the third one is anything that the council gives you. Tsunade blinked in a dumb manner as she watched the younger blonde's clone organizing her papers. How do you know all of that, Gaki? Naruto shrugged. I would often spend several hours a day here. When I was younger, hanging out with Oja-san. When I had started announcing that it was my dream to be Hokage, he let me help him file papers and whatnot. I was even allowed to pick out missions for teams on occasion. Right, Tsunade watched the clone finish its work and go up in a puff of smoke. So what can I do for you? I was actually hoping to get a mission from you. You're very fortunate then, Tsunade smirked. We have a surplus of missions available due to the state of our village after the invasion. Hold on a sec while I find you a suitable one. Naruto watched as Tsunade rummaged through a few piles before finding one she seemed to like and tossed it to him. You're the escort the Cage's children back to Suna and give the Sunagakure Council the new terms for our alliance. You will be staying there until they sign the terms before returning. Any questions? Nope, I think I'm good. So where do I meet them? Naruto pocketed the scroll. We've actually given them a hotel room until I could find someone to be their escort. Tsunade wrote the directions on a sheet of paper and handed it to the blonde. Make sure you're all packed and ready to go. I want you to head out within the next hour. Naruto gave Tsunade a two-fingered salute. I'll get right on that. By the way, cage bunshins really help take the workload off of paperwork. Naruto left after that, letting his last sentence sink in. When it did, Tsunade grinned. I think I love that Gaki. She created a cage bunshin and had it start working on her paperwork. Meanwhile, she grabbed a hidden bottle of sake and went over to the couch. Tamari flipped another page of the magazine she was reading as she sat on the couch. It had been about a week since she and her brothers were let out of jail and given a place to stay until they could be sent back to Suna. And in all honesty, she could not complain about being forced to stay there. In the time they had been here, she had finally managed to get closer to Gaara. After her and Kenkiro's little brother had apologized, she had been able to talk to him a lot more. Not that he really said anything, but he no longer threatened to kill her when she was near and listened as she talked. She was still a little wary of him, but her joy at finally having her youngest brother coming around overrode any fear she had from his previous psychotic disposition. A knock at the door interrupted her reading and she looked over at her brothers. Kenkiro was sitting on a chair a little ways away, tinkering with karasu after he had been allowed to have it back. Gaara was sitting on the couch next to her, watching some kind of anime on the TV. "Who's gonna get that?" Kenkiro grunted as he looked up. "Not me." "I'll get it." Gaara stood up and made his way over to the door. He opened it up and blinked when he saw who it was. "Can I help you, Uzumaki?" The others snapped their heads over when they heard the name, remembering it from the Chunin exams. Naruto grinned as he looked at Gaara. "How have you been, Gaara?" Gaara raised an eyebrow, the only sign of being surprised by the blonde's friendly disposition. "I have been fine, Uzumaki." He paused before remembering that it was polite to ask how someone was doing in return. "And how are you?" "Oh, you know, same old same old. I can't really complain." Naruto looked over at the other two. "I'm actually here because Ba-chan's given me the mission to escort you back to Suna." "Really?" Tamari asked as she walked towards the pair. "I'm surprised it took so long for her to send us back." "She's been here for a week." Naruto shrugged. "I guess she was busy doing other things, though I didn't really ask her. Anyways, how long will it be before you guys can get ready?" "It should only take a few minutes," Tamari said. Naruto nodded as Kenkiro and Tamari grabbed their scrolls and other equipment before he led them outside. As he and the now former Kage's children made their way to the west gate, the two gatekeepers, who Naruto noticed were the two who had changed themselves into younger versions of themselves during the Chunin exams, grinned. Walking up to them, Naruto revealed his mission scroll to the pair. Chunin Uzumaki Naruto with a mission to escort the Sabaku siblings back to Sunagakure. Kamizuki Izumo, a man wearing standard Chunin garb, had brown hair with one bang hanging over his face and a bandana-style headband, nodded as he marked the group down on the ledger he had next to him. Meanwhile, Hagane Katetsu, who was also wearing the Chunin getup but had spiky black hair, a goatee and a bandage over his nose, grinned. "Well, if it isn't the kid who almost cleaned out the entire Chunin exams. How've ya been? And you're the pair who had used those poorly disguised henges at the beginning of the exam to bar entrance to those who couldn't see past a genjutsu." Naruto grinned as the two looked a bit sheepish. "I've been good. Now that I've got my week-long break over with from my mission with Eros Sennin, I decided to get my groove back on." "Eros Sennin?" Katetsu questioned as he handed the mission scroll back. "Yeah, you know Jiraiya. Big man, white hair, kabuki clothes, carries a large scroll around on his back." Naruto shrugged. "Eros Sennin." The two gate guards looked at each other before shaking their heads. "Kid, you must have balls of steel to be calling one of our most powerful ninja by such a name." "Oh, come on. The guy's a self-proclaimed super pervert, so of course he's going to get a name that's appropriate for him. Just like Tsunade's an old woman who hides behind a henge, therefore, her name is Ba-chan." The gate guards plus the Kage's children behind Naruto minus Gaara, sweat dropped at hearing the blonde call two of the most powerful ninja Konoha had ever produced by such derogatory names. "I take that back, kid, your balls must be made out of some kind of titanium to be saying stuff like that." Katetsu shook his head. "Man, if Tsunade-sama heard you call her by that. Who's to say she hasn't?" Naruto grinned before leaving with the Sabaku siblings. As the group walked away, the two Chunin watched the blonde go. Izumo shook his head before chuckling. "Well, with his reputation, I suppose we shouldn't have expected anything less." Katetsu nodded as he grinned. "And now that we've seen what he's made of, I have no doubt the kid will go far." As the group hopped through the trees, Naruto remembered his first escort mission to Nami no Kuni and had to thank Kami that the people he was escorting were ninja and could move quickly. However, that still did not keep Naruto from feeling bored as they traveled on in silence. And so, being who he was, the blonde decided to make conversation with the group. "So how have you guys been since the invasion? Konoha didn't treat you too roughly, I hope." "We wouldn't have had to be treated at all if it wasn't for you." Naruto heard Kenkiro's mumble and turned to him with a grin. "Actually, you guys can thank Yugi-chan for knocking you out. All I did was keep your attention on me." Naruto shrugged. Besides that, had you guys not actually tried to fight me and just taken Gaara and left, I doubt it would have happened. Yugi-chan. Kankuro blinked as he tried to place the name to a face. Wasn't she that hot blonde Kumo chick who beat you in the finals? Naruto nodded. Yep. I'm surprised you remembered. Kankuro gave a lecherous grin. Who could forget a fine piece of ass like that? Ow. The puppet user rubbed the back of his head and glared at Tamari, who had hit him with her fan. I suggest you stop making perverted comments around me, Kankuro, Tamari threatened as she held up her fan. Unless you want to learn just how painful it is to sit with a metal fan shoved up your ass. Naruto chuckled a bit before getting a curious look on his face. So how far is Suna, you guys? Tamari looked at him as she moved alongside to speak better. If we keep going at this speed, it's about 3 days away. Have you never been this far out of here? Naruto shook his head. No. In fact, I've only been out of the village twice now. Once when I went on a C rank escort mission to Nami no Kuni, and recently when I had to bring Tsunade Ba-chan back so she could be Hokage. I can't believe you would actually call the strongest kunoichi in the elemental nations something like that. Tamari shook her head. Naruto grinned at her. As I said to the gatekeepers, I call him as I see him. As the day continued, Naruto kept up a steady stream of conversation, mostly with Kankuro and Tamari, since Gaara was not very talkative, though he did make the occasional comment. As nightfall came, Naruto had the group stop and set up camp. He sent a clone out to get some firewood and catch some food. While everyone ate, Naruto noticed Gaara was looking at him. Turning to the redhead, Naruto decided to see what he wanted. Something on your mind, Gaara? Gaara looked at him for a moment as if debating what to ask him. I was just wondering, what was your life like in Konoha? You mean, was it similar to yours? Naruto asked as he took a bite out of his fish. Gaara nodded and Naruto leaned back a bit and thought, well, I don't know how bad you had it. But my life up until I made Genin was pretty desolate. I never had anyone to hang out with or talk to. All the adults hated me, and that hate was passed on to their children. I remember being kicked out of shops, or being overpriced for basics goods like food, not to mention most of the food had been rotten by several months. Most of the adults would glare at me as I passed them on the streets. In the academy, most of the instructors did their best to ignore me, never answering any of the questions I had, berating me when I got something wrong. If it wasn't for the Hokage and a few others who saw me for me, I probably would have ended up like you had. Gaara nodded while the other two siblings stared at each other before Tamari looked at the two. What are you guys talking about? He's like me, Gaara said, as if that explained it all. Like you. Tamari looked over at Naruto. Wait, you mean you're a Jikaushiriki? Naruto looked at the blonde for a moment before deciding to answer. I guess since Gaara's one too, I can tell you. Though I would appreciate it if you didn't inform anyone else, this is an S-class secret after all. Yes, I am a Jinchuriki like Gaara. Which one do you hold? Asked Gaara. Naruto gave the redhead a grin. Oh me. I hold Q-chan. Q-chan. Kankuro questioned with wide eyes. Are you telling us that Kyuubi, the Kyuubi, is a girl? Naruto nodded while Kankuro looked bug-eyed. Tamari looked shocked before looking smug, and Gaara just looked confused. I didn't know Biju had genders. Naruto looked over at Gaara. From what I understand, they don't. Kyuubi is special, I guess you could say, in that she somehow gained a human form, which just happened to be female. I'm still waiting to hear the story on that one. All in due time, Naruto-kun. Kyuubi smiled within her seal as she reread Ika tactics, not like she had anything better to do at the moment. You still have to find some way to earn my respect before I give up more information. That's not fair, Q-chan. Naruto felt like whining. Kyuubi rolled her eyes. Tough. Naruto sighed as he looked at the three Sabaku siblings. Yeah, she refuses to tell me anything about herself unless I find some way to earn enough of her respect that she'll give me the information. Gaara looked at the blonde in confusion, though it was hard to tell with his blank face. Naruto mused that the redhead would be a great gambler with that poker face. So you get along with your Biju? Of course, though I only actually met her recently, like a little less than 2 months ago. And even then it wasn't until a little over a week ago that we really started to get along. Naruto wondered how much time had passed since he had his beef with Orochimaru in the Forest of Death. So much had happened since then. Though, I suspect you can imagine my surprise when I wake up and see a hot vixen with 2 fox ears looking at me. Kankuro looked at Naruto with an odd expression. You mean to tell me that not only is the Kyuubi a chick, but she's a hot chick? Naruto grinned. Amazingly hot, the tails and ears just add an exotic quality to her. Now who's laying it on thick? What? I just decided to try my hand at my newfound ability to charm women. Nice try, Kyuubi responded dryly, but while I do not have experience with actual flirting, I have been at this far longer than you. Naruto chuckled a bit before he paused at hearing a grinding noise. Looking over to the source he saw Tamari glaring at him. Is something wrong, Tamari-san? Realizing what she was doing, Tamari put on a sweet smile that Naruto could tell was forced. No, nothing's wrong. Naruto looked at her for a moment before shrugging her disposition off as some kind of thing women do. There was silence for the rest of the meal before everyone went to bed. Gaara surprised his siblings when he offered to stay up and take watch, claiming he couldn't sleep anyways. Deciding it would be a good idea to speak with a fellow Jinchuriki without the others, Naruto said he would stay up as well. So was it bad for you, living in Suna? Naruto asked as he looked at the redhead who sat a little ways away from him on another tree branch. Gaara looked over at Naruto before looking back into the forest. Yes. I remember the looks everyone gave me back in Suna. Unlike you, people had come to fear me. When I was younger I had tried many times to get the children my age to play with me, but because of my sans natural defense they had feared me. It didn't help that the rest of the population hated and feared me. Naruto could only barely make out the sad quality the redhead's eyes took as he spoke. The only person who had ever shown me any kindness was my uncle, Yoshimaru, who had been ordered by the Kazekage to keep me from being a menace to others. But that ended when Yoshimaru had been ordered by the Kazekage to kill me, feeling that I was a failure as a weapon. Naruto was barely able to hold in a gasp at hearing that. It was now blatantly obvious to the blonde why Gaara had ended up the way he did. If the Sandaime had ordered someone to assassinate him, he would have no doubt become a psychopathic killing machine as well. Why didn't he refuse the order? Gaara looked back at Naruto. A part of him wondered why he was telling the blonde so much, but another was relieved to be able to get this off his chest, and he felt that Naruto would be able to understand. He said that it was because he secretly hated me, that it was my fault my mother, his sister, had died. That was when you came up with the idea of relying only on yourself, huh? Gaara nodded and Naruto leaned back against the tree trunk. Well, I can certainly see why you came up with that. If Hokage Ojisan had ordered my assassination, I probably would have done the same. The pair was silent for a while, each giving into their own thoughts before Gaara decided to ask a question that had been bothering him since his defeat. Do you think I can be like you? Naruto opened his eyes and turned to look at Gaara. Like me? Yes. Can I be like you? Do you think it will be possible for me to gain the strength that comes from protecting people who are precious to me? Will I gain precious people? Naruto looked down in thought for a second before giving his fellow Jinchuriki a large grin. Of course you will. All you have to do is work at it. Gaara looked shocked, at least as shocked as was possible for Gaara as Naruto jumped onto his branch. It may be hard since a lot people in Suna probably still fear you, but it's far from impossible. The blonde plopped down beside Gaara. Besides, you already have 3 people who are close to you. I do. Gaara stared at Naruto for a few seconds. Who? Well, there's your 2 siblings for one. Naruto tilted his head towards the pair of tents where his brother and sister were. They may have been afraid of you, but you can tell from the fact that they never left your side that they still love you. Gaara thought about that for a moment. It was true, no matter how bad he had gotten or how many times he had threatened them, his 2 siblings had stayed with him, well, as much as they could. I guess you're right. Of course I'm right. Naruto laughed, and then you've got me as a friend as well. You. Gaara stared at him, and this time Naruto could see the surprise clearly evident on his face. You would be my friend. Even after I tried to kill you and destroy your village. I don't see why not. Naruto shrugged. Besides, it's not like the village was destroyed or anything, and you didn't kill anyone. The blonde paused for a second. Well, I don't think you killed anyone, you seemed far too busy with my clones. He shrugged. It did not really matter, everyone deserves a chance at friendship and happiness. Your Kazekage never gave you the chance, and I know how you feel. Therefore, it's only right we be friends. And besides, we Jinchuriki need to stick together. Right. Naruto saw Gaara's lip twitch slightly and figured it was the redhead's way of smiling. I would like that, Uzumaki-san. Good. Naruto stood up, though if we're going to be friends you need to stop with the Uzumaki crap. Just call me Naruto. Very well, Naruto. A little ways away Temari had zipped her tent down a little bit and was listening in on the conversation. When it ended she crawled back inside of her sleeping bag as a smile made its way on her face. Thank you, Uzumaki Naruto. Back in Konoha Team 7 was currently doing their usual D-ranked missions. They would usually do around 2 or 3 a day due to the fact that a lot of the village needed to be repaired. As they finished up and walked towards the mission room, Sakura looked up at her sensei, Kakashi-sensei. I was wondering why Naruto isn't doing these missions with us. Kakashi looked away from his book to look at the Pinkett. That's because Naruto is a Chunin now. He ignored the shocked look from Sakura, though he also caught the jealous look from Sasuke. I'm surprised you hadn't realized it yet. With the performance he showed during the Chunin exams it was obvious he was going to be promoted. Does that mean he won't be doing any more missions with us? The thought was kind of odd. Naruto had been a part of Team 7 since its founding and not having him here felt wrong to Sakura in some way she could not fathom. He will still do missions with us on occasion, Kakashi replied carefully. However, because of his status we have him doing higher ranked missions. Sakura seemed to accept this and nodded. But Sasuke had clenched his fists as he thought of the blonde going on higher ranked missions. I should have been allowed to become a Chunin. Why is Naruto always surpassing me? Ever since we became Team 7 it's been like this. I feel like I'm standing still while the Dobi continues getting stronger. He held his neck for a moment as he felt the cursed seal pulse before the one containing it forced the power back down. After 3 days of traveling through the forest Naruto and the others came upon the desert. The trip had been relatively easy and nothing major had happened. Naruto had continued talking with the 3 Suna ninja in an effort to get to know them better. He had even decided to disregard his first meeting with Kankuro and start over, though he still made fun of him for stealing his sister's makeup much to the amusement of said sister and Gaara, not that you could actually tell from the latter. With Gaara he would often talk about their past experiences as Jikhoujiriki. He had learned from the redhead that unlike Naruto, he did not get along with his Biju and that even as they continued talking Shukaku was screaming for the blonde's blood. Naruto figured something was wrong with the seal. A containment seal, especially one holding a Biju, should be strong enough to contain it completely so that it could not harm the container in any way. Kyuubi had agreed with this as she explained some of what she knew about the blonde's own seal and Naruto offered to take a look at it when they got to Suna. His conversations with Temari were a little awkward. He refused to neglect talking to her, and would often ask questions about what it was like being in Suna and some of her missions. However, he had never forgotten what she had tried to do to Tenten. And even though he felt no animosity towards her, was a little distant all the same. Temari found it awkward for a similar reason. Now that he was actually paying attention to her she felt bad about the way she had treated his friend, but could not work up the courage to apologize. Dear sweet Kami. It's so hot out here. Naruto griped as he and the Suna trio ran through the desert. How the hell can people deal with this Kami-forsaken heat? Kankuro smirked, seemingly finding amusement in the blonde's plight. Can't take the heat. Naruto glared at the puppet user. Of course not. I come from a forest. Let's see you change from 60 and 70 degree weather to 100 and above. Temari gave a small giggle while Kankuro snorted in laughter. I can't believe you kid, someone strong enough to beat Gaara is complaining about being hot. Suck it up, you're a man aren't you? More of a man than you, makeup boy, Kankuro growled before Naruto smirked. You of all people have no right to comment on my gender, seeing as how you steal makeup from that cute sister of yours. Temari felt a small blush coming on her cheeks that no one but Gaara noticed. What was that? Kankuro ground out, you want to say that again? Do I need to repeat myself? Naruto gave an amused grin. Before Kankuro could erupt Gaara interrupted them, as amusing as it is to see you two squabble, we'll be arriving in Suna shortly. Only a few minutes after Gaara informed them of that they had arrived at Suna's main entrance. After letting Temari deal with the gate guards they were told to meet a man named Baki at the Case Tower. As the group made their way through the gates and into the village proper, the first thing that Naruto caught was the looks of fear on the villagers' faces. He knew this fear was not directed at him, he could already see their eyes on Gaara as they backed away from them. Naruto found himself disgusted by the people. Had it not caused more problems he would have probably beat the shit out of them. You know, I don't know whether to find it amusing or disgusting. The Sabaku siblings turned to look at the blonde as he shook his head. Why is it that people seem to fear Jinchuriki when it's others like the former Kage who are the ones that create them? It never made sense to me, calling people like Gaara monsters when all people like him are as a byproduct of power-hungry fools. Naruto had spoken the words loud enough that everyone around him could hear them. The blonde took the time to note people's expressions. Some looked disgruntled or hateful at the comments on their former leader, others had not changed from the fear they exuded of Gaara. But Naruto also noticed a few thoughtful faces amongst the crowd. With some doubt planted in the minds of some, perhaps there was hope for some change. He looked over at the Sabaku siblings and grinned at their shocked expressions. Well, just stating my thoughts. Sorry. The rest of the walk was silent as they made their way to the Kage Tower. Like everything else, the tower was made of sandstone. It was a large dome-like structure that was situated in the center of the village. Within the seal, Kyuubi shook her head at the typical Naruto action. You know, Naruto-kun, that was a very kind thing you did. You think so? Naruto questioned. Well, I just figured I should help in some way, you know. I know, Kyuubi said as she thought about her container and his desire to help others. She knew that she would never help another for no reason other than that it was the right thing to do. It actually kind of impressed her. Most beings, herself included, were very selfish. You continue to impress me. I think for that I'll tell you a little about myself when you come into the seal tonight. Naruto perked up at that. Really? Of course, Kyuubi's voice betrayed her amusement. Cool. Naruto looked up and noticed they were entering the Kage's office. Showtime. As the four walked in, they saw a man with the standard Sunagakure outfit, which was basically the same as Konoha's except tan and dark brown instead of blue and green, sitting in the office. He had a veil covering the left side of his face and dark black eyes. Naruto recognized him as the trio's Jonin-sensei. Baki-sensei. Temari said in surprise. Baki looked up and smiled. Hello Temari, Kankuro, Gaara, it is good to see you three are well. Gaara stepped forward a bit. Likewise sensei, I'm pleased you were not killed during the invasion. Naruto noticed the slight widening of Baki's eyes, the only sign of him being surprised. However, the man was not a Jonin for nothing and covered it up quickly. Thank you Gaara. The man turned towards Naruto. I was informed by a carrier hawk that you have the new terms for the alliance. Naruto nodded as he stepped forward, digging into his pouch and handing the scroll over. Yep, here it is. Thank you. Baki took the scroll and set it on the desk. The council will hold a meeting tomorrow in order to go over the terms of our alliance, but it may take a day or two before we actually sign it. If you want, I can get you a hotel while you wait. Naruto opened his mouth to accept the offer, but Temari decided to interrupt. Actually, you can stay with us if you want. Her two brothers looked at her in surprise. Naruto did as well, blinking a few times as he registered her words. Are you sure? I mean, I don't want to be a burden or anything. You won't be a burden, Gaara said. I agree with Temari, and we have more than enough room to accommodate you. Naruto scratched the back of his head and gave a grin. Well, if you guys are sure, I wouldn't mind staying. It will be nice not being alone for a change. If that is the case, then the only thing left for me to do would be to congratulate you three on your promotions. The three Suna ninja looked at Baki in surprise. Well, Kankuro and Temari did. Gaara just raised an eyebrow as usual. The three of you did very well, and even though Kankuro did not fight his match, we have decided to promote all of you. You guys know what that means, don't you? Everyone looked at Naruto, who had a grin on his face. We need to have a party to celebrate. Kaki narace sanzai wo. Koko ni iru tu. Urata na tabi ga ima hajimaru. Kawari yuku kisutsu no naka wo. Ikanuku tabi ni bakura. Chita suyosa wo te ni irata kido. Nagarateku jikan no naka ni. Okazari ni shita omoi wo. Washirata koto sura washirt ita. Naruto, Temari and just about everybody else watched in a mixture of amusement and shock as a drunk Kankuro and Gaara sang karaoke at one of the local bars. Well, it was more of Naruto being amused and everyone else being shocked. The blonde looked over at his companion for the moment and grinned, "How come you're not up there with them?" Temari looked at Naruto and smirked, "Because unlike them I can hold my liquor. Neither Kankuro nor Gaara have ever drank anything before. I didn't know you drink." Naruto took a sip of his sake, relishing the nice slow burn it gave on its way down his throat. He reminded himself that he would have to take the Toad Boss's offer of a drink when he summoned him the next time. "I don't often," Temari shrugged, following her fellow blonde's actions. "But I have on occasion during some of my diplomatic missions. I was the only one that was usually sent due to the fact that Gaara was always more than likely to kill whoever hired him, and Kankuro, well, just look at him." Naruto did not bother holding in the laugh that escaped. "Yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want him on a diplomatic mission. Honestly, with that makeup and cat suit I'm more afraid of him than I would be of Gaara." Temari smiled. "That's just because you can beat Gaara." "Maybe," Naruto shrugged. Honestly, if they fought again and Gaara was actually sane, he was not sure who would win. Plus they were in a desert now. Gaara had a whole country of sand that he could bury the blonde under if they fought here. The thought of being buried under several thousand square miles of sand made him shudder. "You know, I don't think I ever asked this." When Temari was sure Naruto was paying attention, she continued. "How long have you been a genin?" Naruto blinked at the odd question but figured she was just trying to make conversation. "About 6 months all told, well maybe 7 now." "That's it." Temari's eyes widened a bit, causing Naruto to chuckle. "You must be some kind of super genius to gain enough strength to take on Gaara after only 6 months as a real ninja." Naruto grimaced. "Please don't call me that. Unlike most geniuses, I actually trained hard for my skills. In fact, my training would probably kill most people." "You don't like that title?" Temari asked, curious. "It's not that I dislike geniuses," Naruto grimaced again. "It's just that every year in Konoha some new genius comes out of the academy." Seriously, both Neji and Sasuke were considered geniuses of their year, and I kicked Neji's ass, badly I might add. And I'm pretty sure that Sasuke would not stand a chance against me either. Yet everyone thinks he's like the second coming of the Yondaime Hokage or something, though I think that's just because he's the last of the Uchiha clan. Naruto ended his speech in quotation marks. Temari giggled a bit, causing Naruto to grin. He looked back over at Kankuro and Gaara, sweat dropping as he saw the two were really out of it, yet they still managed to keep singing. "I think it's about time we got them off the stage. I'm pretty sure Gaara is actually scaring the villagers more than usual." Later that night, Temari had led Naruto to her large mansion as two Kage Bunshin were shouldering Kankuro, who was passed out from drinking, and Gaara, who was still awake but muttering something about teddy bears. As Naruto's clones set the pair down in their beds, the real Naruto looked at Gaara with a thoughtful frown. "Hey Q-chan, how come Gaara's not recovering from the alcohol like I do?" Kyuubi yawned a bit before answering. "That's because aside from you being a Hanyu, Shukaku's power is different from mine. Each Jinchuriki comes with different abilities given to them by their Biju. Shukaku gives Gaara his sand shield while I gave you regenerative abilities." She gave a dismissive flick of her tails. "Don't worry about him too much, he will still recover in a few hours or so." Naruto nodded before he left the room and found Temari waiting for him. "Let me show you to your room, Naruto-kun." Naruto blinked as he heard the added suffix but was not given time to think on it as Temari grabbed him by the hand and led him to where he would be staying. "Here we are. This is where you'll stay until you leave." "Thanks Mari-chan," Naruto grinned at the girl. "Mari-chan." Temari felt her face heat up at the nickname. Truth be told, while Temari was considered to be one of the most beautiful kunoichi in Suna, she had never really gotten an opportunity to date anyone. While in Suna everyone knew her as the demon's sister, and stayed away from her, and when she went out she only seemed to attract perverts. Naruto was different. She could tell he was still kind of perverted, but it did not seem to rule over him like it did most males. And he was not actually hitting on her. She could tell that for the most part his ability to make her blush had been unintentional. Because of this, being around Naruto was always kind of awkward, though not always in a bad way. She watched as Naruto opened the door and bit her lip. "Wait." Naruto turned around and raised an eyebrow at the now pensive female blonde. "Yes. Something wrong?" "No, Temari paused before looking down. "I wanted to apologize." She looked up and saw Naruto's confusion, so decided to elaborate. When I was fighting your friend, that girl with the buns, I was overly cruel. I'm sorry. Naruto looked at her for a while and Temari began to squirm a bit. Being the daughter of the Kazekage, she never really had to deal with this kind of thing, and had never apologized to anyone, so she was a bit uncomfortable. After a few seconds, however, Naruto merely gave her a soft smile. It's fine, I'm not angry or anything. I mean, yeah, I was at first, but I don't like to live in the past. Besides, Naruto grinned, I could never stay mad at such a beautiful girl. Temari blushed as Naruto made his way inside the bedroom she had given him. The next day was for the most part filled with boredom. Because Naruto was something of an ambassador, he was forced to listen to the Suna Council nitpick over the new alliance agreement, despite the fact that everyone knew they were going to sign it anyway. The agreement would actually help improve their village far more than the previous one did. It made Naruto wonder why they were so adamant on arguing over the damn thing. Thankfully, Baki had told him that he only needed to be at the first meeting as a formality and that he would not be forced to sit through the negotiations after that. Sometime after the first meeting, Naruto found himself back in the Sabaku mansion looking over Gaara's seal. As he did, a frown made its way on his face. Well, I was right, the seal, while not terrible, is far too weak and shoddy to properly contain a demon. So what's wrong with it? Asked Temari, who was sitting next to Gaara and watching the preceding events. Nothing, Naruto shrugged, there is technically nothing wrong with the seal. Like I said, it's just weak, too weak to hold back the power of a demon. So what are we supposed to do? Temari looked worried. If there was nothing wrong with the seal, then how could they help Gaara? Naruto looked at her and grinned. Well, unfortunately, because I'm not a seal master, I can't do anything. I mean, I could try, but the chances of me breaking the seal and killing Gaara are too high to risk it. However, Eros Sennin is supposed to be a premier Fuinjutsu master. I'll have him make a run by Suna when he's out of the village and take a look at the seal. It should be possible for him to place a seal over the one Gaara has now to limit the amount of freedom the Shukaku has in Gaara's mind. That would also allow Gaara to get some sleep, since the only reason the blasted sandbag can whisper to him is thanks to the seal being so damn weak. As everyone digested what Naruto told them, said Blonde took out several sealing tags. In the meantime, he can use these. Eros Sennin helped me make them for me if I ever lost control of Q-chan's Yuki while training in it. Gaara sat up and pulled his shirt back down before taking one of the seals. He looked at it before turning his gaze to Naruto. What is it? That, my friend, is a Yuki suppression seal, Naruto grinned. Eros Sennin and I developed it when we were searching for Tsunade Ba-chan. What it does is forcibly suppress the demonic Yuki of a Biju. These things can only go suppress about 3 taels worth of power, but for Shukaku they should work like a charm. Those will allow you to sleep until Jiraiya comes to check out the seal. How many of them do you have? Gaara looked at the seal and everyone could see the small amount of hope in his eyes. On me. I only have about 5, but I know how to make them, so I can create as many as you want so long as I'm given the necessary supplies. Naruto clicked his tongue for a second before grinning. Give me enough ink and sealing paper and I'll make a 2-year supply. That should be more than enough to last until Eros Sennin comes. Temari and Kankuro looked from Gaara over to Baki, who, while shocked that this boy was so willing to help, of course after hearing him call his Biju Q-chan he supposed he shouldn't be, nodded. I can arrange that. While sealing is not very renowned in this village, we should be able to get the necessary supplies. I think I'm going to take one of these now and get some rest. Gaara stood up. Alright, just make sure to attach it to your skin. Your Suna no Yoroi has to be turned off or it won't work. Thank you, Naruto. Gaara surprised everyone by giving a small bow of gratitude before he left to get some sleep. Naruto stretched a bit as he stood up, grinning in satisfaction as he felt his bones pop. Well, that was fun. Now I just have to wait for the council to sign that damned alliance, and if they're anything like the floozies in Konoha, that could take a while. Everyone had a laugh at that while Naruto hummed. So what exactly do you guys do for fun over here? I mean, I would go out drinking again, but Makeup Boy was such an embarrassment the last time, what with being a lightweight and all that singing he did. Temari laughed while Kankuro growled, hey. My singing is awesome. Did you see me up there? I was rocking the house. If by rocking you mean the spastic swaying motions you were making while piss drunk, then yes, you were rocking the house, Naruto grinned. Temari covered her mouth to hold in her giggle while Kankuro looked about ready to pop a blood vessel. The blonde Suna Kunoichi stood up. If you want I can offer you a tour around the Suna. Naruto looked over at the girl and grinned. I would like that, Mari-chan. The pair of blondes found themselves walking around Suna with Temari pointing out anything she could have think of that looked interesting. Though, Naruto wondered how she was able to even see where certain things were since the girl currently had her head on his shoulder and her eyes were closed. It was like she had some kind of sixth sense or something. Not that he was really thinking too heavily on that, having found most of his attention on the girl whose head was on his shoulder and whose arms were wrapped around his. That and the fact that she has my arms smashed between her pillows, Naruto thought, fighting a bit to keep the blush off. Really, he felt he should have been used to this by now. What with all the crap he went through with Anko, and then the flirting that Yugito had done with him when they were together. I mean, I had my ass pinched in public. You really can't get much friendlier than that. Well, I suppose you could, but, gah. Mind out of the gutter, Naruto. Forcibly suppressing the admittedly lewd thoughts that had entered his head, the blonde took a moment to look around. They had somehow managed to locate a park. Really, it was just a basic kids' playground with a few objects of children entertainment like a seesaw, a swing and a small climbing structure. Oh, I haven't been here in forever. Temari said as she let go of Naruto's arm and sat on one of the swings. She looked over at Naruto and hid a grin as she gave him a pout. Naruto-kun, do you think you can give me a little push? Naruto blushed a bit, finding the way she bit her lower lips and bat her eyelashes to be absolutely sexy. Sigh, maybe Anko was onto something when she said any kunoichi would be able to wrap me around their finger, especially since I have yet to see an ugly kunoichi. Sure. Naruto dutifully ignored the giggle Temari let out as he walked behind her and began to push her. This would continue on for some time with Naruto pushing Temari while said Suna Kunoichi kicked her legs out on the upswing. They stopped when the sun began to set and Temari got another idea. Temari looked at Naruto with a predatory grin that made the blonde gulp. Why do I feel like an antelope being stalked by a lion? How about we go out to dinner? A little while after that, Naruto and Temari had walked around Suna until Temari had picked a place where she wanted to eat. It was nothing really fancy, just a simple restaurant that thankfully for Naruto had ramen. As Naruto ate his food, using a lot more poise than came naturally since this could very well be considered a date, much like his time with Yugito, he looked up at Temari. Hey, I was wondering something. Temari looked up at Naruto. What is it? Well, I was just curious why you don't have a boyfriend. Temari narrowed her eyes a bit at the reminder. It was fortunate for Naruto that he had continued. I mean, you're such nice and pretty girl, I just found it odd that you wouldn't have one. Temari's eyes softened and a blush stained her cheeks. She looked at him for a second and was surprised to see nothing more than honest curiosity. What makes you think I don't have one? Naruto blinked at the question before answering. Well, if you did, I doubt you would have asked me out to dinner. I mean, if I was your boyfriend and saw you with some guy, the first would probably kill them. If anything, the blush that was spread across her cheeks became more prominent, but a smile came on Temari's face as she answered the question. I'm surprised you haven't figured it out. At her fellow blonde's look of confusion, she laughed. I'm the daughter of the Kage. A lot of the males in Suna are put off by that, and even our shinobi have some issues getting past it. If that's not enough, I'm also Gaara's sister. Well, that explained things well enough for Naruto, who nodded in reply. The only people who have actually shown an interest in me were some of the sons of rich nobles and daimyos that I had met and escorted. There have even been a few daimyos themselves who have expressed an interest in me. Temari said the words expressed with distaste, and Naruto heard a mutter of, perverted old men, added on at the end. I suppose that would keep people from actually trying to get to know you. What about you? Temari asked suddenly enough that it startled Naruto. I mean, you were awfully close to that bun-haired girl I fought and that Yugito girl. Naruto blushed a bit before getting himself under control. Well, they're not my girlfriends per se. I don't have a girlfriend or anything, I'm just really close to those two. Ten-chan was the first friend my age that I ever made in Yugito. He paused for a moment, not sure if he was allowed to tell anyone about Yugito's status before remembering that Jinchuriki were looked up to in Kumo. Yugito is like me and Gaara. Temari felt surprise at the two statements, though she now understood why Naruto seemed so close to those two. She had listened in on Naruto's conversation with Gaara when he spoke about his experiences, so of course he would be close to that Tenten girl as she was his first friend. And it made even more sense with the Kumo Kunoichi, Yugito, since she could relate to Naruto on a level most others could not. I suppose that makes sense. So you don't have a girlfriend? No, Naruto shook his head. I don't, but even I tried to get one. There are complications that make it impossible for me to have a stable relationship with anyone. Temari frowned a bit at the response, but it was soon replaced with curiosity. What could keep you from being in a relationship with anyone? Naruto frowned for a moment before leaning in, forcing Temari to do the same. I suppose since you're related to Gaara it's okay to tell you. I doubt you've heard, since even Ero Sennin's only found out about this recently, but there's a group of 9S ranked criminal ninja that are after the Biju. He heard Temari gasp a bit and nodded. Naturally, that makes my life even more dangerous than a regular ninja. We don't know what they want them for. However, a group of criminals on that level trying to gain that much power, you can be sure it's anything but good. Sighing, Naruto leaned back in his chair. I could never give myself to someone else knowing that the chances of me dying are so high. It was not the only reason, of course. There was also the fact that even if he did end up in a relationship, anyone he got with would eventually die, whether it be of old age or something else. They would die while he would live. Temari frowned sadly at hearing that. That sounds like it will be awfully lonely. It is, but it's not like I'm just closing myself off. I will do whatever I can to make my precious people happy, and that's good enough for me. Precious people? Temari murmured in a questioning tone. She looked up at Naruto and blushed a bit. Am I one of your precious people? Naruto looked at Temari for a few moments before grinning. Maybe. Why do you ask? Do you want to be? Temari just blushed while Naruto laughed. Later that night, Naruto and Temari walked to the mansion and, being the chivalrous bastard that he was, escorted the girl to her room. Thank you for taking me out. Temari turned around to face Naruto and give him a smile. Naruto smiled in return, though it was more of a sheepish grin as he scratched the back of his head. Hee, no problem, Mari-chan. I liked spending time with you. That's good. I liked spending time with you as well. Temari looked down at her feet for a moment as if to gather her courage. When she looked up again, Temari leaned in and gave Naruto a kiss on the cheek. She pulled away and smiled when she saw the blonde shinobi with a prominent blush on his face as he lightly touched the spot where she had kissed him. That was for giving me such an enjoyable time. Temari gave him a wink. Also, I don't think you should worry about those guys who are after you. You're one of the strongest ninja I know. After all, not many people can beat Gaara. So I know you'll be fine. Good night, Naruto-kun. Naruto watched as Temari closed the door to her room before a smile found its way on his face. Hot damn, what is it with these girls being so close to me all of a sudden? Are you complaining? Came the annoyed voice of Kyuubi. She did not really know why, but seeing her container with that girl or any female really gave her an unpleasant feeling. However, Naruto did not notice the annoyance in her tone as he spoke. Of course not. Who could complain about that? I was just wondering what it is I'm doing differently from what I had done in the academy. Kyuubi shook her head at how dense her container was. Does it matter? Now get to your room and come into the seal. Yes, ma'am. Naruto made his way to the room they gave him, which he loved due to the fact that it was larger than his apartment. He took off his clothes and jumped onto the bed, not even bothering to get under the covers as he went into the confines of his mind. Fav. Naruto. Shifts in life. By. The engulfing silence. A few small changes can make a world of difference. Knowledge given at the beginning of one's career can turn a hopeless loser into a shinobi of strength and skill. Differences in a history that have long since passed can create a totally different outcome from what we might expect. This is the story of Naruto Uzumaki. This is the tale of these small shifts in life. Rated. Fiction M. English. Adventure. Romance. Naruto U chapters. 66 words. 726,949 reviews. 7,291 faves. 13,835 follows. 11,950 updated. August 1, 2018 published. January 10, 2011 status. Complete. Id. 6,641,202. Plus. Less than previous one. Chapter 12. Chapter 23. Chapter 34. Chapter 45. Chapter 56. Chapter 67. Chapter 78. Chapter 89. Chapter 910. Chapter 1011. Chapter 1112. Chapter 1213. Chapter 1314. Chapter 1415. Chapter 1516. Chapter 1617. Chapter 1718. Chapter 1819. Chapter 1920. Chapter 2021. Chapter 2122. Chapter 2223. Chapter 2324. Chapter 2425. Chapter 2526. Chapter 2627. Chapter 2728. Chapter 2829. Chapter 2930. Chapter 3031. Chapter 3132. Chapter 3233. Chapter 3334. Chapter 3435. Chapter 3536. Chapter 3637. Chapter 3738. Chapter 3839. Chapter 3940. Chapter 4041. Chapter 4142. Chapter 4243. Chapter 4344. Chapter 4445. Chapter 4546. Chapter 4647. Chapter 4748. Chapter 4849. Chapter 4950. Chapter 5051. Chapter 5152. Chapter 5253. Chapter 5354. Chapter 5455. Chapter 5556. Chapter 5657. Chapter 5758. Chapter 5859. Chapter 5960. Chapter 6061. Chapter 6162. Chapter 6263. Chapter 6364. Chapter 6465. Chapter 6566. Chapter 66 next greater than. Disclaimer. Okay, so I've gotten tired of doing the disclaimer, therefore I have decided to have a guest star announce it for me. Hit it Lee. Rock Lee. Yosh. Pokemaster 12 does not own the rights to Naruto, this unyouthful knowledge often depresses him. However, I will endeavor to help my youthful comrade feel better about this. And if I cannot, I will run 1000 laps around Konoha on my pinkies. Pokemaster 12. Lee. Rock Lee, and if I cannot do that, I will travel to Suna and back 50 times with 2-ton boulders strapped to my back. Pokemaster 12. Lee. Rock Lee, and if I cannot do that. Pokemaster 12. Sigh, why don't you all just continue reading while I try to get this youthful person out of here? Rock Lee, and if I cannot do that. Naruto. Shifts in life. Chapter 33, Konoha dealings. The next day was much the same as the first for Naruto, only without him having to listen to the council. Instead, Tamari had woken him up and taken him out to breakfast, and afterwards had asked for a spar. He found out that the girl was quite good with food and jutsu and her fan. She and Naruto had eventually swapped some jutsu with each other as well as compared notes on their uses for wind chakra. He had also spent some time with Gaara. And he could honestly say that he had never had a more amusing, was the appropriate word, time. Naruto had introduced his red-haired friend to the fine dish that was ramen. It was to his surprise and great joy that the Suna Jinchuriki loved the dish almost as much as he did. Between the two of them they had devoured upwards of 60 bowls, causing the ramen stand owner there no small amount of shock, nor joy when he had received the money for making the food. After that they had walked around the village and talked about Jinchuriki things, comparing notes on Biju. Naruto had also asked about how well his suppression seal had worked and was assured by Gaara that it worked perfectly. Another amusing thing was all of the looks the pair were getting. Naruto, with his rambunctious attitude, was almost always cracking jokes, laughing and just having a good time. Seeing someone like him with Gaara, who said ninja was not trying to kill and actually talking with and listening to said blonde telling jokes, was something of a shock for the village populace who was used to having him as a psychotic killer. Naruto actually hoped that this in some way made the people of this village realize that Gaara was just as human as they were, and was deserving of their respect. Other than that, not much else had happened, with the sole exception of Kyuubi telling him some more about herself. This time it was about how she had gained a human form. Turns out that the only reason Kyuubi had managed to gain this form was because family of humans. Flashback. I had noticed them at the edge of the forest, Kyuubi said as she lay down in the bed and closed her eyes. I instantly recognized them. Of course, I had seen quite a few humans before them. She frowned for a moment. By that time I had gotten rather tired of having to deal with their constant attacks and had been looking for some way to get them to stop without having to sully my hands with the task of killing them. Naruto's sweat dropped as he heard the last bit. I watched as the two adults watched the small little girl running around, and as I watched them an idea began to form in my head: if I could look human, then those damn humans would never bother me again. Kyuubi turned her head to see Naruto leaning against the wall right next to her. I wasn't really sure to go about the task of creating a human body, but as I watched the girl I became curious. I had wondered to myself, what would it be like to be that little girl? I didn't think you would care to wonder about such things, Naruto commented. Kyuubi sighed. I do get curious about some things, Naruto-kun. My fox form was not just random chance occurrence. From what I understand, each Biju's form is based on one or more of the primary aspects of their personality. I am a fox. I was blessed with incredible intelligence and cunning, as well as a curiosity about things I see and don't understand. I thought cats were the curious ones. Cats and foxes are distantly related, Kyuubi said before frowning. At least I think they are. I never really studied animal anatomy, so I could be wrong. Kyuubi paused for a moment before continuing. Normally I'm able to control my curiosity, but at the time my mind was also wondering how I could create a human body for my own use. Anyways, as I watched them, my body began to shrink and I began to change. Before I knew it, I was an exact replica of that little girl I had been watching. After that, I had come out of the forest and mimicked what the girl was doing. Seeing me, the family decided to take me in and raised me. Do you ever miss them? Asked Naruto, curiosity clear in his voice. Of course not, Kyuubi scoffed as she shook her head. I had never really gotten attached to them. They were humans, and though I looked like one, I was not. A smirk graced the redhead's lips. I think they always knew something was different about me. I was much more reserved than their daughter and did not like to be held or even touched. I tolerated it at the time because I was trying to learn how humans interacted with each other. It was one of the key gaps of information I had on humans. You still don't seem to know much about human interaction, Naruto replied dryly. I didn't say I cared enough to interact with humans myself, Kyuubi shot back. I had only observed them for the most part. Once I had gotten all the information I felt was necessary, I began to manipulate them as I saw fit. I would manipulate my parents into treating me like I was the queen of the house, and my sister was essentially my servant and go-between for other humans that were not a part of my family. Once my body began to come into its teenage years, I began to expand my influence. I had learned rather early on that the boys would cut off their own arms just to be near me. I ended up using my beauty and charms to influence them as well. My influence continued to expand in the small town I essentially grew up in until I practically ruled it. Kyuubi shrugged as she ended her story. In the end, when I had lived with them for 17 years, learning all I could about how I could best use humans, then I left, and I never looked back. And so your form now is that of the girl who you had gained the image of? Asked Naruto. He did not comment on her life. He knew enough about Kyuubi not to get angry about her manipulative ways. It was just the way she was, and there really wasn't much point in getting angry anymore. No, this is my form, she replied. As I grew up, my looks began to differ from hers, and as I changed forms, I would take on specific physical aspects of the person I changed into until my form became complete. So you can transform into another person. Did you do that often? Asked Naruto. Kyuubi laughed. I have always been changing how I look to suit my needs. I had found out that I hold the ability to shape-shift. I believe it is something that only I can do, though you can to a certain extent as well. Naruto blinked for a moment before he realized what she was talking about. You mean my cage henge? Kyuubi nodded. Yep. Anyways, this form that you see before you is actually my body's representation of myself. My complete form if you will that I gained sometime around 50 years after I left the people who raised me. I always have this, base, human form that I return to after transforming into whoever I have previously. Whenever I disengage my transformation this is what I become. And what about the tails and ears? Those aren't part of your base form are they? No, Kyuubi admitted, but I dislike having to hide them. I did so when I traveled but since I am stuck here I have no need to hide my appendages. Naruto looked thoughtful as he went over what she told him in his head. So have you ever transformed into a guy before? Nope. I tried once, but for some reason I was never able to do it. Kyuubi paused and hummed thoughtfully. I'm not really sure why but my theory is that, when I first transformed into a human, it was into a girl. I grew up being raised as a girl while I was in my first human form. This gave me a female perspective. Because of that, even though I am technically just a massive Yuki, I have the mindset of a woman and therefore am a woman. I see, Naruto clicked his tongue in mild thought. I wonder why I can transform into a female then. Who knows, maybe you're just more in touch with your feminine side. Yeah maybe hey wait. Are you telling me I act like a chick? Naruto glared at the vixen. Kyuubi gave him a cheeky grin that was eerily reminiscent of his own, or was his similar to hers? Well I didn't want to comment but. That's cruel Q-chan, Naruto sniffed. Sometimes you're so mean, I think I'm gonna cry. Ah, don't feel sad Naru-kun, Kyuubi cooed as she modulated her voice, much like she used to when using her beauty and charms to turn men into slaves. Unlike with other males she had used it on, Naruto merely felt a small shiver run down his spine. There's nothing wrong with that, and a lot of girls seem to like you so I wouldn't worry. The redhead frowned at the thought of other women, unworthy human women pawing at her container for a moment, before shaking the thoughts away. That was true, Naruto thought to himself, completely missing the look Kyuubi had as he considered what she said. He had received 3 kisses from 3 different girls in the last 2 months, I suppose that's true. The blonde looked over at the redhead, does Q-chan like me too? Kyuubi looked over at him for a moment, unsure what to do. However when she saw the teasing grin on his face she knew he was trying to goad her, much like she had done in the past. She smirked at the thought that anyone would actually be able to get the best of her. She decided to make sure he knew this by setting her head back in his lap and nuzzling against him. Damn it Kyuubi. What the hell are you doing? Asked Naruto in a loud and embarrassed voice. What? Kyuubi looked at him innocently. You asked a question, I was just hoping to answer it for you in the way I thought worked best. Flashback. Yep, good times for one blonde future Hokage. It was the day after that, which the alliance treaty was signed and Naruto was currently standing just inside of Suna's gate as he got ready to go home. Looks like this will be the last time I see you guys for a while, the blonde smiled at the 3 Suna siblings. I'm glad you're gonna be gone you goddamn cheeky brat, Kankuro said, though there was no real malice in his voice. Naruto merely grinned at the kid before Gaara stepped in front of him. I look forward to seeing you again Naruto-san. Naruto smiled, me too Gaara. He held out his hand. Gaara blinked for a few seconds before realizing what the blonde wanted and grabbed the hand, shaking firmly. A moment later Gaara leaned in to whisper in Naruto's ear, if you hurt my sister I will kill you. Did he just play the protective brother card on me? Wondered Naruto while looking at the redhead Jinchuriki in no small amount of surprise. Well he has been getting more protective of his brother and sister as of late, well maybe not so much Kankuro as he has Temari. The blonde was knocked out of his thoughts as Gaara stepped back and Temari stood in front of him with her hands behind her back and a coy expression on her face. You take care of yourself Naruto-kun. I expect to see you again when I'm back in Konoha or when you come back here. You got it Mari-chan, Naruto thumped his chest. Next time you come to Konoha I'll take you out to Ichiraku's where they serve the best food in the world. Gaara, knowing the blonde's favorite food licked his lips at the thought of the noodles that had subsequently become his own favorite food. Temari just smiled, I'll hold you to that. She closed the distance between them and gave Naruto a hug and another kiss on the cheeks. Alright, Naruto stuttered with a small blush on his face. Temari grinned while Kankuro gave a snicker, causing the blonde shinobi to glare at the puppet user. It left a moment later as he grinned at the trio, I'll see you guys later. Naruto turned around and let loose, taking off like a jet fighter and kicking up sand as he made his way out of the village. Naruto had cut through the desert and forests of Kase no Kuni and Hai no Kuni respectively at a ridiculous pace, making it to Konoha within the record time of 1 day. Since it was nearly night time and Naruto doubted Tsunade was awake, either from being tired from the day or drinking herself into a stupor, one or the other, Naruto decided to get some sleep before giving his report. The next day Naruto arrived at the Hokage's tower and greeted Shizune at the front desk. "Hey Shizune-chan. How are you?" Shizune looked up and gave Naruto a large smile. "Naruto-kun, it's good to see you. How was your mission?" "Meh, can't complain," Naruto shrugged before giving a grin. "The company was nice and I got see some new places, so overall it was good." "That's good, you can head on in to give your report. Tsunade-sama should be available." Shizune gestured towards the door. Grinning, Naruto slammed the door open. "Hello Ba-chan. You're so lucky I'm comfortable, brat, or I would have pounded you into the Hokage monument," Tsunade said from her position on the couch. She was holding a bottle of sake in one hand and a saucer in the other. Meanwhile Akage Bunshin was sitting on at her desk working furiously on the paperwork. "I see you're putting my knowledge to good use," Naruto smirked as he entered the room and sat down on the couch next to Tsunade. "You look quite comfortable." Tsunade grinned as she took a sip of sake. "I have to admit, you're a genius for coming up with this." Shizune can't even complain because I usually finish my paperwork sometime before lunch. "So I take it the mission was a success." "Of course. Were you expecting any less?" Naruto grinned as he held out the scroll that held the treaty. Tsunade grabbed the scroll and tossed it to her clone, who caught it before setting it down on the desk and continued working. "Not really. So do you want another mission, or do you have other plans in mind?" "You know, I'm not really sure." Naruto stood up and stretched before turning back to the blonde woman with a grin. "Since I just did a mission, I think I'm gonna get some more training in before going on another mission so soon." "Alright brat. Have fun but don't cause problems." Tsunade waved him off. Naruto favored the blonde Hokage with a grin. "Me? Cause problems? How could you even think I would do such a thing?" The blonde shinobi jumped on the windowsill, crouching down before he jumped out. "Later Ba-chan." Naruto wandered back over to his apartment. Our favorite blonde was in for a surprise when he found Tenten standing on his doorstep. "Ten-chan." Tenten turned around and her frown turned into a small smile. "Hey Naruto-kun, how are you doing?" "Not bad." Naruto walked up to the bun-haired girl and favored her with a smile. "I just got back from a mission. How have you been?" "I've been good. Our team's been pretty busy with missions recently, but most of them are D rank. Thankfully, Guy-sensei says he'll have us doing more C ranks soon, once the village's repairs get done. Man, I'm so glad I don't have to do D ranks anymore, what with being a Chunin and all now." Naruto looked the girl over. "So is there any reason you're here, or was it just cause you miss me so much?" Tenten blushed a bit at seeing Naruto's grin but tried to at least make it seem like she had not missed him. "Don't be so full of yourself. I actually wanted to talk to you about something." Naruto let his grin fall as curiosity overcame him. "So what did you want to talk about?" "Remember when we went on our date?" Tenten blushed as she looked down. "You promised me that you would tell me why you were so hated." Naruto sighed as he heard this. The truth of the matter was that with all that had happened and all the things he had done since then caused him to forget about his promise. But now that she had brought it up, he did remember. "Why don't you come inside and I'll tell you about it?" Leading Tenten inside his apartment, Naruto directed her towards a couch while he went into the kitchen. "Can I get you anything to drink?" Tenten looked over to see Naruto looking around in a cupboard. "Some tea would be nice if you have any." Naruto nodded to himself as he grabbed some leaflets, a tea kettle and 2 cups, and then proceeded to make some tea. Finishing up, he poured the hot water into the 2 cups and brought them out to the living room, sitting one of the in front of Tenten, who thanked him. For a moment Naruto was silent before he managed to work up the courage to get started. "My birthday is on October 10th, the same day the Kyuubi attacked our village." And so he told her. He spoke of the Kyuubi being sealed into him, how he had never learned of this until he had been tricked by a traitor. He told her about his meetings with the Kyuubi and that it was in fact a she, something Tenten had been ecstatic to find out. Apparently it was a big morale booster for Tenten knowing that the most powerful being to ever exist was in fact female. After that, it was the only thing she seemed to care about, saying it proved women could be even stronger than men. Go figure. The only thing Naruto did not tell her was that he was half demon. He had just given her knowledge about him holding a demon, he was not sure how she would react to learn he was a demon. Naruto had even relented and finally told her everything about his A-ranked mission in Nami no Kuni. From fighting the demon brothers, to meeting Zabuza, meeting Haku and then Haku's eventual death. Tenten could understand why he had not told her, the story being sad enough that she could not even find it in herself to be jealous that he had met a member of the Kiri Shinobigatana Nananan Shu. By the end of his tale Tenten could not help but sigh, okay, so I do understand why you never told me any of this, and I can see how you would be scared of letting friends know about. But I'm gonna tell you right now, that you're an idiot. Had Naruto not been seated he would have face faulted. As it was he merely sweat dropped, may I ask why? Well for one, my dad told me to never let anyone other than myself judge you after we first met. Another thing is that I know you very well. You can't honestly think I would believe someone who acts as goofy as you is a demon. Though from what you've told me, Kyuubi isn't really bad. She paused and tapped her chin in thought for a moment before adding, though I wouldn't call her misunderstood either. And lastly I can tell the difference between something that's been sealed and the thing it's sealed into. It's like how I seal my weapons in a storage scroll. Just because I seal my weapons in the scroll, does not make the scroll the weapons that are sealed into it. Naruto smiled at how Tenten seemed to just accept it. Were he a lesser man he would probably be crying. Thankfully he wasn't a lesser man, he was one of the manliest men this side of Konohamaru. You keep telling yourself that Naruto-kun, Kyuubi piped up and burst his delusions of grandeur. You're so mean Q-chan, Naruto gave the equivalent of a mental pout, sometimes I really hate you. Ah, I love you too. Naruto. Said blonde looked at Tenten who seemed concerned. Are you crying? Huh. Naruto rubbed his eyes to see tears. Trying to make a quick cover up he rubbed his eyes dry, making sure to ignore the laughter from Kyuubi echoing in his mind. PFT. Of course not, I just got something in my eyes is all. Tenten withheld a giggle. Yeah you do, you've got tears in your eyes. Naruto scowled when it became obvious that his bun-haired friend did not believe him. A few seconds later though it was replaced by a smile before the blonde surprised Tenten and engulfed her in a hug. Said girl blushed a bright red as she felt steam pour from her ears, and she might have actually pulled a Hinata and fainted had she not heard Naruto speak, thank you. The words were soft, heartfelt and somehow gave Tenten a warm feeling that spread from the heart to the rest to her body, you're welcome. She returned his embrace, deciding that for the moment, she would just enjoy the feeling. The following weeks were filled with C-rank missions and training for Naruto. Most of his missions were fairly easy. He would usually lead a squad of genin, often one of the squads from his graduating academy outside of the village on simple missions. These would normally consist of things like border patrols, escort missions, guard missions, reconnaissance and the very rare bandit hunting. He did go on a few B ranks where he would tackle more bandits and even missing ninja with a group of Chunin and Jonin on occasion, but they were rare. His training was progressing as it usually did. Naruto had begun diversifying his training even more, not with his cage bunchins but with himself. After his morning routine Naruto would usually spend time either sparring with Anko, Team 10 or the other rookie teams, which had been dubbed the Konoha 9. Having been called that due to the fact that they were all rookie genin who had made it past the second stage of the Chunin exams despite being in their first 6 months of active duty. In fact that was one of the things he was doing right now. Gatsuga. Naruto dodged the living drills that Kiba and his dog Akamaru had become as they both barreled towards him. He made sure that neither one of them stayed from his sight too long as he analyzed the dog Nin and his canine's moves, trying to discover any weakness he could exploit. Over on the sidelines were Kurenai, Hinata and Shino, all of whom were watching the battle. Naruto is pretty fast, Kurenai commented as she watched the spar. Very fast actually, I think he has gotten faster since the Chunin exams. Shino gave an almost imperceptible nod, it is obvious that he is going easy on Kiba-san. You can tell by the way he is prepared to leap out of the way long before Kiba-san or Akamaru can hit him. Naruto-kun has gotten really strong hasn't he? Hinata said, never taking her eyes off the fight. Out of all the genin W who participated in the Chunin exams Naruto-kun was the only one to get promoted, the other two said nothing but gave a silent agreement. Back with the battle, Naruto had finished analyzing the jutsu Kiba and his dog used. It was a taijutsu move much like the ones Lee and Guy had. Only this one relied on rotating one's body and using the claws that were a genetic trait of the Inuzuka clan's Kekkei Genkai to become a drill and tear the flesh off of opponents. While powerful if the jutsu hit, it had a lot of weaknesses. One being that it only moved in a straight line, meaning unless you had something to bounce off of, you could only really use it once. Another was that it was slow to gather the necessary amount of rotation to generate enough power to become a drill. And the last, was the weak spot right in the very center of the drill when it came at you. It was this weakness Naruto exploited. Waiting until the two came at him from opposite sides in the hopes of catching him off guard, Naruto crouched down and when Kiba and Akamaru were practically on top of him lashed out. He jumped into the air, spinning his body in a corkscrew, and sent a foot towards Kiba and a fist towards Akamaru. The foot smashed right into Kiba's head, stopping his forward momentum and using the generated kinetic force to launch him backwards. Akamaru had the same effect, but being much smaller it was not as pronounced. Ouch! What the hell? How come I can't hit you? Kiba growled as he rubbed his head. Naruto looked at him for a second before shrugging. Your jutsu depends on several conditions to be met before it becomes ideal for use. The first is you have to be faster than your opponent. The second is you have to catch your opponent in a position where he can't use the weak spot I just hit. And the third, Kurenai interrupted with her own question as she and the other two genin came on the field. There is no third, so long as those two conditions are met the jutsu should work just fine. Kiba glared at the blonde a bit before sighing, since when did you get so smart? Naruto gave Kiba a grin, I've always been smart, everyone else was just too stupid to notice. Lies. Ah, come on Q-chan. Do you have to ruin it for me? Kyuubi's laughter passed through his mind, yes. Spoil sport. Naruto shut off his mental conversation and grinned at the members of Team 8, so who wants to spar next? Or perhaps all three of you should give it a go. Naruto grinned as he walked off the training field an hour later, leaving three unconscious genin and an exasperated Kurenai behind. As he made his way into Konoha proper he never noticed a small figure following him. Hyuga Hanabi watched as the blonde who had defeated Neji and nearly won the entire Chunin exam walked down the street. Much like her sister had before her, the young white-eyed girl had taken to following the whiskered blonde around, studying him the way one would study a science experiment. She continued to follow the blonde as he passed around a corner, only to stop when Naruto seemingly disappeared. Is there a reason you're stalking me? Kya. Hanabi let out an undignified shriek as she spun around and saw Naruto standing behind her with an amused expression. The young Hyuga did her best to gain her lost dignity as she glared at the blonde, though that only served to increase said blonde's amusement. You know, if you're going to stalk someone you should do it properly. Naruto tilted his head to the side as he gave the girl a smirk. I knew you were following me the moment I left the training field. When the girl continued her glare Naruto sighed, look, are you gonna stare at me all day or are you gonna tell me why you were stalking me? Hanabi flushed but was determined not to let the obnoxious blonde get to her, at least not any more than he already had. I was not stalking you as you so succinctly put it, she claimed with a huff. Oh. Naruto raised an eyebrow, so what would you call trying to tail someone without letting them know you following them? Hanabi blushed again but it soon turned into a scowl as she glared at him. You defeated Neji Ne-san, she said, completely ignoring his question. Naruto blinked as she stared at the girl curiously, you're related to Neji. Well, of course you are with those eyes. So, how are you related to him? Hanabi's right eyebrow twitched, obviously, I'm his cousin. I see, Naruto nodded, and you're stalking me because I kicked his ass and you're upset. I am not upset. Hanabi growled as she began to lose her, Hyuga cool. And I suppose red is your natural facial color, Naruto stated as he looked at the girl's red face. Hanabi's face began to take on a shade of purple as she stared at the blonde who was mocking her. She looked like she was just about to explode, or implode, whichever came first. However, she did none of that as she seemed to take a hold of herself and her face regained its Hyuga look. I don't know how an idiot like you managed to beat Neji Ne-san, Hanabi mumbled under her breath. However, it was loud enough for Naruto to hear. Well, if you'd like to find out how I beat Neji, you're welcome to try and find out Firecracker. Naruto smirked as he saw Hanabi's face change colors again. What did you call me? Hanabi asked with a cold glare. Naruto grinned, Firecracker, you've got such a feisty attitude I figured the name suited you. Why? Don't you like the name Little Firecracker? Don't call me that. Hanabi ground out, punctuating each word. Naruto just laughed, yeah, not gonna happen Firecracker. The blonde gave the girl a condescending pat on the head. When Hanabi tried to Juken strike him, the blonde disappeared in a swirl of leaves, reappearing right behind her. Boo! Kya! Hanabi yelled as she spun around in shock. She had not been using her Byakugan, so she had not realized Naruto had reappeared behind her. So are your eyes defective or something? Asked Naruto, picking out his ear with his pinky. 'Cause Neji wouldn't have been caught by surprise had I done that. I didn't have them on. Hanabi ground her teeth. Well, maybe you should turn them, suggested Naruto. That way I won't feel as bad when I humiliate you. Raw! Hanabi shouted as her Byakugan turned on and she charged Naruto. A frontal assault. Naruto mentally questioned himself. Is she serious? Even at my dumbest I would never have done something like that against a superior opponent. Of course, like always, Kyuubi decided to make herself known with a condescending remark. Yes, you would have. Q-chan, why are you always so cruel? Asked Naruto as he dodged several Juken strikes, got behind Hanabi and knocked her out with a chop to the neck. He picked her up before she could fall and began hopping onto the buildings. Just making sure you don't get a big head, she commented idly. So what are you gonna do with her? Just drop her off at the Hyuga compound, he said. Naruto looked over at the eager weapons user in front of him and could not help but smile at the way she was bouncing on the balls of her feet. Since you're so excited, I believe we should begin. Reaching into his left kunai holster, he pulled out a small slip of paper. He held it out to Tenten. I'm sure you know what this is. Of course, Tenten nodded as she grabbed the slip of paper and began channeling some chakra into it. When she did, the entire slip crumbled into dust. It looks like your element is earth, Naruto murmured. I myself am not an earth user, however I managed to gain some scrolls for all of the elements in case you were one that I wasn't. He paused for a moment before continuing. This is actually a good element for you since you're a weapons user. You tend to focus more on long range and offense, whereas the earth element is a mainly defensive element. Naruto pulled a scroll out of his cloak and tossed it to Tenten. That scroll contains the first exercise needed to train your element as well as 3 basic jutsu I want you to learn. I'll be here if you need help, but since I don't know much about your element, it will be best to try and figure this out on your own as much as possible. I gotcha, Tenten said as she looked at the scroll. She looked up at Naruto for a moment before embracing him. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Naruto felt his face get a little warm, but that did not stop him from returning the girl's hug. You're welcome, Ten-chan. While Tenten began trying to turn a leaf into dust, Naruto created several dozen Kage Bunshin and began to spar. He slipped down low as one of his clones threw a punch, grabbing the arm and throwing his clone into another one, causing them both to dispel. Spinning on the balls of his feet, he kicked a clone in the face, however, it disappeared and was replaced with a log. Naruto was so shocked to see one of his clones using the Kawarimi that he ended up getting a fist smashed into his face. Alright, that does it, Naruto shouted as he began to go all out on his clones. The battle soon degenerated into a free-for-all as all the Narutos did their best to kill each other. Soon enough, Naruto had several large rips in his clothes and was bleeding from numerous wounds. His clones really weren't holding back. Gah! All of the battling blondes stopped and turned to look at Tenten, who looked constipated as she stared at the leaf in her hands. Having some issues, Ten-chan? Asked Naruto, startling the girl so badly she threw the leaf up in the air. I can't get this stupid leaf to turn into dust, Tenten said with a large pout on her face. Ah, don't you look cute with that pout on your face, teased Naruto. Shut up, Tenten mumbled as a blush spread across her face. Anyway, try this, he said, kneeling down and grabbing a leaf from the ground. When I use my element, I often think of my wind chakra as 2 sharp blades grinding against each other to create a finely honed point. The leaf within Naruto's hand split in half down the center. Your element is earth, and your exercise is to turn the leaf into dust. I would think that imagining the grainy feel of texture and dust would help you with this exercise. You think that will work? asked Tenten, staring at the new leaf in her hand. I don't know, Naruto shrugged. As I said, I'm not an earth element. I'm just guessing here, but it may help. Tenten took a deep breath and closed her eyes again, feeling and focusing her chakra. Naruto gave her what encouragement he could, and while she did not manage to turn a leaf into dust, she did manage to dry a leaf out a little bit. A few days later, Naruto entered the weapon shop owned by Tenten's father and was able to easily spot said girl sitting at the counter in the back. Hey Ten-chan. Tenten looked up as the door to her father's shop opened and smiled as Naruto came in. Hey Naruto-kun. Is there something I can do for you? Or is this just a social visit? A little of both actually, Naruto grinned as he walked up to the register that Tenten was sitting at. I'm leaving tomorrow for some kind of mission. Tsunade-ba-chan wouldn't tell me what it was. I think I pissed her off when I drank nearly 5 human-sized containers of Mount Myoboku sake without her. You really shouldn't call Tsunade-sama by such rude names, Tenten frowned at the blonde. She was on the fence of being mad at him for calling her idol such a name, and finding his use of such a derogatory name funny. And you really shouldn't have drunken all that sake. Naruto gave a half-assed shrug as he grinned. It's a term of endearment Ten-chan. I called the Sandame Oji-san, I called Jiraiya Ero Senin, therefore Tsunade is Ba-chan. Tenten just sighed, whatever. Yeah anyways. So I suppose first we should get to business. Naruto set the weights he had gotten when he first became a genin on the desk. I need to get new weights. Why? What's wrong with these ones? She frowned in thought. These are some of the most durable equipment we have Naruto-kun. They're supposed to last for years. Naruto scratched the back of his head as he gained a sheepish expression. Well I kinda reached the maximum amount of weight these things possess. So, as the blonde trailed of Tenten's eyes widened, you've already reached the maximum weight limit. Naruto, the maximum amount of weights for these things are 200 pounds. Each. There is no way he could have reached that level of weight in just under 6 months, not even Lee had increased his weights that much in that short a time. It was simply wasn't possible, was it? Tenten, are you forgetting? Naruto placed a hand on his stomach causing her to flush with embarrassment. She had been told about the benefits of being Kyuubi's container, one of which was the regeneration of his muscles, causing them to be nearly twice as strong each time he ripped them. Right, I forgot. Tenten came out from behind the counter and went over to the sections with the weights. Looking at a few different sets she chose the one she felt would work best for Naruto. This is the best selection of weights we have in stock. Tenten handing Naruto the box before she opened it up and took one out. Unlike his other weights, which actually looked like weights, these ones were dark red wrist and ankle bands with what Naruto recognized as weight seals on them. They use a seal to increase the weight, it was a statement. That's right, Tenten nodded. Unlike our other weights that use a chakra-conducive, lightweight metal, these ones use seals. Because of this there is no actual limit to the amount of weight you can put on them. At least we have never found a limit. People have to wear them in order to activate the weights, so the most we have seen added was 600 pounds to one of them. Naruto nodded. I'm guessing they're expensive. 10,000 yen, Tenten confirmed. Naruto had never been so thankful that he had started doing exclusively C and B ranked missions. The amount of money he had gotten had nearly tripled, giving him a nice sum of cash that he had saved up. It also helped that his 2-Kage Bunshin Akira and Kian had also made quite a bit of money. He had even managed to get a bank account now where he put most of it away. That is pretty pricey, but thankfully I've got cash to spare. Naruto followed Tenten back to the register where she rang him up. After paying for the weights, Naruto took a moment to put them on. When he got back up he gave the bun-haired girl a smile. And now that the business is out of the way, I was wondering if you wanted to go out to dinner with me. Tenten's face instantly became a nice shade of red. Like a date. Naruto had never actually asked her out to dinner before. The thought brought a tingling warmth to it that traveled down her spine. Naruto, noticing the increasing hue on her face, tapped his chin. Well, it doesn't have to be if you don't want it to. But if you do, I would be more than happy to take you on a date. Tenten's face seemed to light up for a second before it fell. I don't. Will it be like last time? When Naruto turned a confused look on her, the weapons mistress elaborated. I don't want to go somewhere where people will be rude to you because of. Naruto understood what she meant as he remembered their last date had not gone well due to the waitress. That Tenten was concerned about his happiness brought a small smile to Naruto's face. I wouldn't worry about that. I've found a place that I know won't kick me out, so if you're still interested in dinner the offer's still open. For dinner Naruto had taken Tenten to a small but nice restaurant called the Golden Leaf. It was a diner-style restaurant located on the outer section of Konoha's market district. The place was not fancy or anything but it was nice. When Naruto and Tenten walked into the front door and up to the desk where the hostess stood they both noticed her stiffen. However, as Tenten began to get worried the blonde surprised her when he spoke. I would like the reserved seat under the name Fujin please. The blonde allowed himself a small smile as he saw the widening of the hostess's eyes, no doubt having been informed about the name's meaning. He also noticed that the woman gave him a smile, though it was obviously forced, of course, right this way. Naruto began walking forcing Tenten to walk with him and knocking her out of her slight shock. They were eventually led to a private booth where the pair sat on opposite sides of each other. A waiter will be with you shortly to take your orders, have a nice stay. When the hostess walked off Tenten turned to Naruto, confusion evident on her face. What was that about? Naruto chuckled a bit before explaining, on one of my recent missions, AB rank 1 where the team I was on had to eradicate a small nest of bandits and missing ninja, I managed to find and rescue a woman by the name of Okawa Kikyo who had been captured while traveling. Turns out she's a citizen of Konoha and had been on a trip to find rare ingredients from other countries in order to spice up the menu of this restaurant. Tenten blinked as the words registered in her mind, so I take it she's the owner of this shop. No, her husband is the owner, while she works the menu. Naruto smiled a bit. When Kikyo-san told her husband about how I rescued her I guess he just had a change in heart. Because the next thing I knew he had found me after I had been returning from a mission and told me that if I ever wanted a place to eat, I was welcome here. I see, Tenten smiled. That's actually kind of cool. So what about the name Fujin? What was up with that? Oh that, Naruto gave a dismissive wave. I didn't want them to lose customers because of me, so he created this private booth. Fujin is the alias I came up with for when I want to dine here. Since my elemental chakra is wind-natured I thought it would be a good idea since Fujin means wind god. Tenten covered her mouth to hide a small laugh, a little grandiose of a name, don't you think? Naruto gave a pout as he crossed his arms. I wanted something cool, that and I couldn't think of anything else. This time Tenten let out a rather loud laugh, causing Naruto to puff up her cheeks comically. It's not funny. However, this only seemed to make the girl laugh that much harder. She managed to calm down in time to deliver her order when the waiter came, and after that the two made some more small talk. Most of their discussion was centered on various new weapon designs the two were trying to come up with. Naruto, having for the most part turned away from pranks with only his sarcasm and occasional torturing of Sasuke and Sakura being the closest thing that could be considered as such, had put his pranking mind to other uses. One of those had been to help Tenten design new weapons or improve old ones. They had come up with several different weapons, a few of which Tenten's father was in the process of making and a few that were unfeasible for the moment and had been put on the shelf. After dinner they had walked around one of Konoha's parks before Naruto escorted Tenten home, getting a kiss on the cheek goodnight, much to Kato's, who had been watching from inside the shop, disgruntlement. After that Naruto went home, knowing that he would need a good night's rest for whatever mission he had to go on tomorrow. The next morning, Naruto found his way into the Hokage tower. He paused and thought for a moment, should he go through the front door, or the window? Making a decision he channeled some chakra through his feet and jumped up all the way to the window to the Hokage's office. Good morning Ba-chan, Naruto greeted, ducking under an empty jar of sake. Good morning brat, hey what's up brat? Naruto blinked when he heard the other familiar voice in the room, Anko ne-chan. A grin worked its way on his face as he saw the perplexed. Hey, what's up? Am I going on the mission with you? Yes you are, Tsunade interrupted before Anko could say anything, causing said woman to pout. You guys have two more people who are going to be going with you. We just need to wait for them. As if on cue the door opened and two people walked in, Hokage-sama, Izumo and Kotetsu reporting for a mission. Izumo. Kotetsu. Naruto looked at the pair as he scratched his head. You two are finally getting away from your gate guarding duty. The pair looked over at him before grinning. Hey Naruto. Kotetsu scratched his cheek with his index finger. I guess we are. A good thing too, I was getting bored guarding that damned gate all day every day. I don't see how you can complain, Izumo shook his head. Guard duty is an important job. We're protecting the citizens of Konoha every day, you should be proud of that. Is that what you tell yourself to go to sleep at night? Naruto grinned at the brown-haired Chunin. Seriously dude, I don't know how you people can sit there day in and day out. The monotony must be killer. Ahem, Tsunade coughed into her hand to get everyone's attention. Now that I have your attention. The busty blonde woman tossed a scroll to Anko. Your mission is to escort and guard the daimyo of Kiba no Kuni, Land of Claws, to Tatsu no Kuni, Land of Iron, and then guard him during a negotiation process he is having with the daimyo of Ta no Kuni. Isn't Tatsu no Kuni that samurai nation? Naruto commented as he tapped his chin and looked up at the ceiling in thought. The one that's managed to maintain its autonomy through all three great shinobi wars. So AB rank then. Anko pocketed the scroll. Well, it's not exactly what I had in mind, but I suppose it will do. Actually, due to the oddity of this mission it will be considered A rank, Tsunade corrected, getting Anko to turn back to her. You see, the daimyo from Ta no Kuni has hired bodyguards from Kumo. As you know, it's something of an oddity to have two different ninja villages on the same mission, and while we are not on unfriendly terms with Kumo anymore, I certainly would not call us friends either. Anko hummed for a moment. I suppose that makes sense. Still, I can't see anything going wrong. There are a lot things that can go wrong on a mission like this. Naruto gave the woman a smirk. I mean, you're going on this mission right? Oh ho, looks like the brat's grown a pair since he became a big bad Chunin. Anko grinned, licking her lips a tad. Looks like when we get back I'm gonna have to take you down a peg or two. Naruto gave a grin to match the purple-haired snake summoner. You think you can still beat me like you used to? You're welcome to try, just don't complain when I kick your ass 6 ways to Sunday. Ha, we both know that you're 1,000 years too soon to beat me. You know you keep lengthening the amount of years it's gonna take me to beat you every time you say that. You must be in need of an ego boost if you're expanding your yearly limit like that. Tsunade received several tick marks on her head as she continued listening to the two bickering, and a part of her wondered if it was a good idea to send them on a mission. Meanwhile, Izumo and Kotetsu were looking back and forth between the pair, placing bets on who would win this war with words. Oh, for the love of will you two shut up? Tsunade shouted, her anger getting the better of her as she threw a paperweight at Naruto and a sake bottle at Anko. Both of them ducked under the thrown objects and turned to look at Tsunade. Sorry about that, boss lady, Ba-chan. Tsunade rubbed her head as she felt a serious headache coming on from the pair. Just go, your employer will be at the North Gate within the next 2 hours. Alright, everyone get your shit together and meet by the North Gate in 2 hours. Anko shouted, raising her fist in the air. I'll see you all then, later, Ba-chan. Naruto grinned as he towards the open window and jumped out. The others left in their own way, Anko shaking her head and leaving in assumption while Kotetsu and Izumo left through the door. Tsunade sighed and pulled out a bottle of sake. Maybe it was a mistake to let those two take a mission together. Curse that damned brat. Orochimaru cried out, taking deep heaving breaths as the pain in his arms and now his whole body felt like it was on fire. Damn him. I'll kill that stupid blonde genin the next time I see him. Orochimaru-sama, you must calm down. Kabuto entered the room, frowning at the way his master was thrashing about. If you keep moving so much you're going to injure yourself even more. Kabuto-kun, what have you found out for me? Orochimaru gasped as he ignored his subordinate's words. Not much, I'm afraid. Kabuto pulled out a scroll and unsealed the files from it. This was all I could get, and there was nothing here on Naruto. It seems all information on him is kept completely confidential. Only the Hokages themselves can access those files, and with the Sandaime gone. The next one in line is to be Tsunade, and I doubt she would let me look at them. Orochimaru finished Kabuto's sentence in a murmur, his mind working at the possibilities that this new information might hold. And what of Sasuke-kun? It seems we have some more troubles here as well. Kabuto pushed up his glasses before looking at the information that had been given to him by Orochimaru's mutually beneficial partner. It seems that Naruto managed to combine 2 Fujihoin seals together to create a more powerful seal. I am sure you have noticed that you can barely even feel the power of the curse mark you placed on him. Orochimaru nodded. Yes, I had been wondering about that. After finding out that blonde brat managed to get rid of his own, I tried connecting to Sasuke's only to feel just a small pulse. Are you telling me that in addition to getting rid of his own seal, he also managed to completely seal off Sasuke-kun's? The thought left a bad taste in the snake Sanin's mouth and served to aggravate him further. Well, not completely, as you said you have been able to feel small twinges from the seal, Kabuto said. Orochimaru frowned as he tried to sort things through. If the seal was closed off as much as he thought it was, then controlling Sasuke from here would be a problem. However, by that same token he knew that there was no feasible way to get him out of the village. Even if he came willingly they would still have to deal with that blonde brat, and Orochimaru was not willing to waste valuable resources until he was sure he could procure Sasuke. For the now there is nothing we can do about Sasuke-kun, not until we find some way to slip him out of Konoha without anyone's notice. The pale-skinned man paused. I want you to gather a list of our shinobi who are not listed in Konoha's registry. What do you plan to do, Orochimaru-sama? Asked Kabuto. Kukuku, you'll see, Kabuto-kun, you'll see. Omake. What happens in the forest of death, stays in the forest of death. Naruto entered one of the deeper and more secluded sections of the Forest of Death after having just gotten back from a C-rank mission with Team 10 while Asuma had gone out on another mission. They had gone on a routine reconnaissance mission that had ended with them being forced to terminate a small group of bandits. Despite the minor setback of some douchebags that thought they could take on a group of ninja, the mission had gone off without a hitch. And now Naruto had some important business to take care of. Kuchio's number jutsu. There was a large puff of smoke before Gamabunta appeared within the clearing. Oh, it's you. What do you want, brat? Naruto grinned at the Toad boss. I remember you saying something about needing to have a drink with you before I can truly be your summoner. Yeah, what have I? Gamabunta blinked before he realized what was going on. He gave a low chuckle, which due to his size made the ground shake a bit. In that case I'll need you to summon me back in a few minutes while I get the sake. Gamabunta disappeared in a puff of smoke while Naruto prepared the seal that, if he was correct in his theory, would allow him to turn off his regeneration and actually get drunk. Sometime during the night Team 9 had been assigned a mission inside the village, one that was ranked as C rank due to the place the mission was taking them. Apparently there were some rather odd noises coming from the Forest of Death and no one knew what to make of them. Because Mitarashi Anko was currently away on a mission, it was obvious she was not the reason for this disturbance and some were afraid it may be enemy shinobi or some scavengers of some kind. It was not quite a well-known fact that Naruto often frequented the place. Out of all the people who knew him, only Tenten and Anko herself knew that the blonde trained in the forest. However, since Tenten knew that there were many things in the forest and the reports claimed it was odd noises that sounded like croaking, she figured it could not possibly be Naruto and thus remained silent. Guy was in front of the formation, being the one who led the team especially when they were in a potentially dangerous place. He was followed closely by Neji who was their spotter with his Byakugan, and he in turn was flanked by Tenten and Lee. Normally having such a high-level mission within the village would have excited the normally excitable Lee. However, given their present circumstances and where they were going even he knew to be cautious. Neji-kun, can you spot anything yet? Not yet, Neji shook his head while they traveled. Whatever it is we're tracking it's far out of my range. Where did Hokage-sama say the noise was coming from exactly? She did not know, Guy answered. Since few ever venture into the Forest of Death the noise was only heard from the outside. No one has any clue where the noise comes from. Well, I don't hear any noise now, Tenten commented. All I hear is wait. Do you hear that? They all stopped and listened and found that they could indeed hear something, though it was too far away and garbled to determine what. I believe it is coming from the northeast. Guy placed an ear on the ground. Neji, activate your Byakugan and let's head in that direction. Neji did as told and the group was on the move once again. As they got closer to the source the group began to hear the sound far more clearly and realized what it was. It was singing. Neji, who had his Byakugan active, saw something up ahead. I see something ahead of us. It looks like A. His eyes widened in surprise and he face faulted, causing the others to stop. Yosh. Neji-kun, are you okay? Did you trip over a most unyouthful root or something? Lee looked around for something that his eternal rival might have tripped over. Neji ignored them as he began speeding over to the direction of the singing. The others quickly followed him, being forced to catch up. When they finally did, they were in the clearing and found a very surprising and very shocking sight. 10 large barrels of what the group easily guessed held sake, judging by the stench in the clearing, were littered around the area. Sitting near the bottles was one very large and very drunk toad. Even more surprising was that Naruto was also there, sitting right next to the Gamabunta, and he too looked rather wasted. Both Naruto and Gamabunta had a large human-sized saucer right in front of them, and both were singing pirate songs. 16 men on a dead man's chest. Yo-ho yo-ho, a pirate's life for me. Shot, shot. The pair picked up the saucers in front of them and began guzzling down the saucers of sake. It was a great surprise to see that Naruto seemed to be keeping pace with the large toad, though there was a little bit of overspill since the saucer was just too big for his mouth, so quite a bit of the sake would slosh over the side. Not that he seemed to care that some of it was drenching his clothes. The pair set their saucers down and laughed. Right before they started singing again. "Guy-sensei, these two are doing some most youthful singing I have ever heard in my life." Lee exclaimed as tears ran down his eyes. "I must join them in this youthful excursion and fan my own flames with my youthful singing voice." Lee ran over to them and began to sing, causing both Naruto and Gamabunta to look at Lee before looking at each other, shrugged and began singing again. The other three merely watched this odd sight with weariness, curiosity and embarrassment respectively. Guy-sensei, when Guy turned to look at Tenten, she continued. "Now that I'm pretty sure we found the disturbance, what do we do?" "You know, Tenten-chan, I'm not sure. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and have a great day."